Welcome. You are listening to the Mantic Universe podcast. I'm Chris, and as ever, I'm joined by my good friend Clem.
Hello, everybody.
And my good friend Trent.
Hey, guys.
And Mark would be here, but to be quite honest with you, it's my rubbish organizational skills just hasn't really given him a chance to, with the time difference and everything, to make it. So, sorry, Mark, if you're listening to this, we'll get you on next time. Super. So, what are we going to talk about today without Mark? So, Clem, before we start, this is, I'm not sure of exact dates, but we've been going for a year.
Is it a year already?
Yeah, it must be. Yeah.
Nice.
This is episode 15.
That's, makes sense. Yeah, I guess. If we do it once a month, you'd say it was 3 months ago. Right? But I think, we've been kind of not on a very regular schedule. So, 1 year already. Nice.
It's pretty cool, no? And I kind of think if you get married, you've got to manage at least 2 years of marriage. Otherwise, it was a write-off. It was if you make it to 2 years, I think you can say, well, it didn't work out, but it's not embarrassing.
Right.
I think us making a year, that's pretty good.
That's a good start. Yeah, that's a good start. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, to be honest. So it must be a good thing.
Hey there, I'm Brian.
And I'm Rick.
From Deadzone, the podcast.
And you're listening to Mantic Universe Podcast.
For everything Mantic under the sun.
Must be. Yeah, you're having so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, who'd have thought updating Google Docs is so enjoyable?
That's not the fun part. It's the same for the introduction that you don't like doing, Once you're through it, it's
Speaking of which, fantastic. So, we've got our introduction. We've got Mantic News. We've got our Warpath Firefight, our Warpath Deadzone, our Pannithor, which will also include this month some Dungeon Saga. And Pannithor, we've got some Pannithor, which is Dungeon Saga. We've got some listener questions this month. We've got a full bag of listener questions. And then topic of the month, kind of. To be honest, I think we've got enough content. So if Countercharge hasn't milked that teat dry, we can talk about Adepticon, or at least.
Oh man, we had a lot of Adepticon content on Countercharge. I think the last episode just came out, maybe, or it's about to drop. Well, it'll probably have dropped by the time this episode gets released.
There was one called something like Adepticon: The End, it really was. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little sad after because I feel like I'm weird because I like to listen to the podcast that I'm on. I feel like when I first started, I was like, I don't want to hear my voice, but now I want to hear back and be like, oh man, that was a really clever thing I said right there.
That's not weird, buddy. You said lots of clever things.
It was like Adepticon was over again when I finished it. I was like, oh man, back to normal life.
Oh, bless you. Yeah, back to work. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It could be, listening back. I mean, my wife laughs at me for listening to our own podcast, but I do listen to the podcast. I mean, in fairness, I don't really spend much time editing it, so I kind of feel like I have to be one of the first people to listen to it. So
you release it and then do the QA check.
Well,
the QC.
I mean, effectively, yes. That's definitely what's happening. There have been a couple of little things where I thought, probably should have cleared that up. But hang on a second. And this bit I might edit out. We'll have to see. But I wanted to mention something else, guys. So we're going to try something new. So as we're talking, if you want something edited out, make a note in the comments with the timestamp, and then that gives me a much better chance of going back and doing it. Yeah, because if it's a needle in a haystack, I'm not going to do it. Whereas if you write, minute 22, such and such seconds.
But are you sure you get the proper time reference? Because the recording, let's see, it's going to be fun. So it's the episode where we want to see awful things.
I like the idea.
And let you come back and edit it.
Help me to help you. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get Steve on to hear awful things, maybe, He's a specialist.
That all stays in.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Good point. Yeah. But anyway, that's the new system. So I'm not having to go and look for things. Good. Yeah. Anyway, there we go. No, that's the beginning bit finished. So that's good. Apologies for last month. Yeah, a bit of dodgy editing. But it is what it is. I am actually trying to get a little bit better at it, to be honest, because I think getting a little better would go make a big improvement. But having said that, it's all time.
It's also how we do it in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. If you go on countercharge, you can be pretty confident you won't look like a fool. Whereas with us, it's just how it is.
Yeah.
After 3 hours of recording.
Chris, what are you talking about? Countercharge, it's all first takes, man. Every single one of them.
Absolutely. Super. Right. Should we move on to Mantic news?
Let's do it.
Okay. Mantic
Quite a lot of
news.
stuff also this month, right?
Oh, yeah, as usual. Yeah. So there was the Night Stalker release. What do we think of that? Is this is hard plastics, I'm going to assume?
Not all of it, right? Like they've released some. I think the Phantoms are resin, so they've repackaged a bunch of stuff. It's on pre-order at the moment, so we haven't seen the actual models in our hands, but they're all available on the web store, I believe, and the actual release date is mid-May.
Didn't they already had resin Phantoms? Is that correct?
I believe yes, from maybe the Vanguard Kickstarter. I'm not sure because I do have some of them, but there were some PVC models and some resin models, and I don't remember in which box they came, but you couldn't buy them separately, I think. The thing we've been ranting about
the Northern Alliance problem. Yeah, and so they're going back to
Night Stalkers and solving this, basically. So all of the units are now released separately, or will be very soon. Some models which didn't have, like some list entries that didn't have a model now do have a model. So the Void Lurker is now a magnificent Titan. And there are also 2 new plastic kits. So one for Reapers and something, I believe, maybe a new list entry, I don't remember, and Butchers, and again a new list entry. So 2 new plastic kits basically for the Night Stalkers.
So is that the Butcher's kit? Am I understanding this correctly? It's basically going to be kind of a dual kit where there's 2 units.
Right. Yeah, it's basically,
sounds smart, to be fair.
Yeah, from what I understand, there's the normal Butchers that we know, so it's like the melee fighty unit, and there's a ranged shooting version of them.
So it's a bit like Enslaved
arms.
Guardians, basically.
Probably, yes, something similar. Yeah. But in all new plastics sprue. So yeah, and there are pictures of all of them on the Mantic websites, especially now that you can pre-order them, I believe, and they're supposed to release mid-May. So yeah.
So for one strong Mantic IP, they're actually going in and doing all that cleaning up stuff we've been asking for ages, right? That's fantastic news.
Yeah. I think also Ronnie mentioned they will do something similar for the Northern Alliance.
Oh boy, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah,
I have so many housecarls.
Yeah, and it makes complete sense, right? Like they have very interesting ranges, but some of it you can't really buy so easily. Only buy it by getting the mega army. And so that was kind of a problem, and they're just getting back to it. And I think they will also make really interesting sets, right? Like can you imagine the ambush sets, except it's a starter set, so a bit more stuff in it, and the full rule book, like the compendium, like those will be an amazing value, an amazing way to start with the game, I think. So yeah, no, really interesting release. It's I didn't expect the Night Stalkers to come so soon, to be honest. I thought we would see the Twilight King before, but no, I'm glad to see them. Definitely gonna get some Butchers and Reapers for my Night Stalkers.
It's just a shame they're putting it out after all the nerfs to the Night Stalkers.
Yeah, I mean, there was no change in Night Stalkers, right? From what I remember.
Speed 10, unchanged.
Yeah, they're just the same. For what I play, it's pretty much the same.
I mean, to be fair, I think even after the nerfs, Night Stalkers are still definitely competitive. Maybe not like just the edge over that they were before. But yeah, I've been really impressed with seeing the models for pre-order. They look like they did a really good job on them. And this is really random, but did you guys see the giant butcher that Mantic gave away on the Kickstarter? It was like a foot tall or something like that. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like maybe a 3-up print or something, right? Like it's the Butcher Heroes or the Butcher Flesh Ripper.
Yeah.
And it's a print that is like 3 times the normal size or something.
And wasn't it? I think it was. You had to, on the Kickstarter post, you had to guess how many backers it would end with, and whoever was closest won it. So I thought that was pretty cool.
That's a really cool idea.
Yeah, to get like a unique prize like that.
Yep. No, it was really interesting to see.
That's really fun. Super. Would someone like to speak about... So Armada is now on the companion app, which is massive, right? That's a really big thing.
Yeah, we probably should have started with that, honestly.
Yeah, right.
So many big news this month.
Yeah, lots of big news. And we're just purely going through the notes. So, we'll get to it. Interestingly, guys, I was looking at the stats, and about 20% of our listeners make it all the way to the end.
Ooh,
that's pretty
impressive.
good, actually.
I probably should have said it at the end. So
you mean, Chris, that's you, me? That's 20%.
And me like half the time.
Yeah, so that's 20%.
Trent when he's on. Okay, super. Yeah. Yes, no, but that's fantastic news. And Warhol is a thing.
Yeah, it's actually pretty cool. Like I had seen Warhol, so it's like a tabletop simulator, right? Tabletop game simulator. Initially, it was designed for the 9th age, I believe. And they had a Kickstarter campaign 2 or 3 years ago, I think. And I even pledged for it, like to support it, because I thought, maybe I can play Kings of War with this. Because it's like UB2, but it's 3D, and it's really designed to play this game. So it knows a little bit of the rules and has the models for all of the entries of the list and so on. And it turns out Mantic and Warhol creators partnered and created an Armada mode for this game. So now you can play Armada online. So you can make your list on the companion and then import it into Warhol and play with the friends on the computer. And,
I think that's a really big point, right, Clem? As you said, so you make your list in the companion app, and then it you can feed it through into Warhol to play it electronically, basically. That's really cool.
I mean, they just released it, so there might still be a few issues here and there. I'm not 100% sure. I had just a quick look so far, and I'm not an Armada expert either, so it's hard for me to really judge on the details. But the big picture for me really looks great, because you do have the Mantic models, like the 3D views of the ships. It's exactly the 3D ships that you can buy and paint. And so, it looks great and lets you play a lot more games. I mean, I think I've said many times already that I love playing Kings of War on UB2. And so for me, something like Warhol really is good news and great development. And that, for me as well, I think it shows that Mantic is smart about what they're doing. I like that they will go and jump in and do these kind of partnerships. I think it's the right thing to do, and I'm glad to see them do it.
And when you've got a smaller community, game like Armada, it's so great that people will be able to get a game in. May not be able to meet people locally, but you can jump on Warhol and get a game with someone in Australia or wherever in the world. It's really cool.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't mean that you play less with actual miniatures, right? It's more that you get one more way to enjoy the game. And I would argue it's almost the opposite, right? Like the more you play on Warhol, the more you enjoy the game, and the more likely you are to actually play with miniatures at some point if you find opponents locally for it. So it's absolutely not a competition, in my opinion.
Yeah, fantastic. And we probably want to mention the Kickstarter campaign for Dungeon Saga. So it was over 4,000 backers. £402,000 raised. how do we? I mean, I thought it was a great campaign. I'm really excited about it. I think the game looks great. The models look great. I think it's terrific value. Obviously, we're going to deem that successful. I think it's not the breakaway success we might hope it to be. But I think, at this point, we all have so many different board games on our shelves. There's been so many Kickstarters.
Yeah,
I think it's tough to some extent.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. Because the Hellboy game, they raised over £1 million, I suppose. I don't remember the details. So this one is maybe a bit lower in the total amounts that they raised, but it's still a decent sized group of buyers before the game is actually out. I suppose, yes, they didn't really connect it with an audience, that much of an audience outside of the, let's say, Kings of War fanatics or Mantic Game people, or people that knew Mantic Games already. So maybe in that regard, it's not as brilliant as one could have expected. But from what I've seen of the game, I have relatively high hopes. It's not a hit and run type of mission, right? This game will live after Kickstarter. Like a lot of games on Kickstarter is Kickstarter is the release platform, and after that you'll never see it in stores or anything. I think Dungeon Saga is absolutely not like this. And now, especially now, it has language packs to be available in French, in German, I think in Italian as well. I think this really, really makes a big difference in terms of can it actually sell in those markets. It's easy to forget when you're an English speaker or a native speaker, or like me, you can speak English and that's not a problem to play games in English. But for a big majority of people, you need to have it in your own language, especially if you're going to play with your kids. So yeah, I think this is a huge part of the.
A good example. I have a couple of games in German that I rarely play because honestly, I prefer to play games in my native language. It's just easier, right?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Sounds great, buddy.
And so now we will see it in December in theory, right? For Christmas. I think that's what they said.
Yeah, Ronnie's very confident they'll get it to us for Christmas, which just sounds great, doesn't it?
Yeah, that'd be great timing. And I know it's not, it wasn't as popular as Hellboy, like you were saying, but I think the goal was their goal for fundraising was £50,000.
Sure, but that's always similar, no? They said it very low.
But I think that, Clem, what you said was spot on, where this one might not have gotten the interest of people outside, more removed from the community. So that's why we would see something lower. Because I feel like when you see Hellboy, everybody knows what Hellboy is. But just your average person is not going to understand what, Kings of War models, all of that stuff is. But I'm really excited to get it and try it out because I had a blast playing the older Dungeon Saga with you guys. But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But who knows? I'm a big fan of the Hellboy board game. I think it's fantastic. But who knows what kind of cut they have to give to whoever it is for that presumably quite expensive license. Whereas obviously Dungeon Saga is their IP. So don't know. It's interesting. After the first couple of days of the Dungeon Saga Kickstarter, I was kind of hoping it would be a breakout success. It seemed to be going, gangbusters, but still really good. And I'm certain it's going to be a great game. So super looking forward to it. Oh, speaking of Kickstarters, there is a Kickstarter running at the moment. As of time of recording, I think there's 7 days left, and it is for Corvus Games Terrain. And it's to 3D print. It's called Paint Pal Studio. So it is a 3D printable modular solution for storing your paints and your brushes and organizing your hobby area. We were lucky enough to get a bit of a advanced version of it, and I've printed a load of stuff out, and I think it's really fantastic. Corvus is a fantastic. They've been making my favorite STLs for terrain for years, so I use a load of their stuff for The Walking Dead, and I play some Fallout as well, and it's fantastic. Really easy to print, looks great on the table, really really cool. And so, yeah, that's very much recommended. And with Corvus, the prices are always super reasonable as well, I think, to be quite honest with you. And so I think it's fair to say we're kind of supported by Corvus now as a podcast. So as our dear listeners, if you go to Corvus Games Terrain website and you want to buy something, if you use the code MU Podcast 15 at checkout, you'll get 15% off your order. So I'll put that code in the show notes. But honestly, I mean, I've been using their stuff for years. I really think it's fantastic. And obviously I wouldn't say that if I didn't believe it. So, so yeah, have a look at the Kickstarter. Really cool stuff. But there's also loads of great stuff on the web store that you can get a little discount.
You got some of the Deadzone terrain from them, right?
Yes.
I remember you printed some of those.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. You've got some too, actually, buddy. I don't know if you're actually
the only issue is I can't really easily print filament like with a filament 3D printer, and so to print terrain is a bit more work. But yeah, I also have the files, and it's a really comprehensive set. It's quite nice.
If you want me to print some for you, just let me know.
That's a dangerous thing, but yeah, maybe. Sounds good.
Cool. Super. Oh, it feels very strange being a corporate shill, but Corvus it's very much, it is, I mean, I don't know whether it's a one-man band, but the guy running it is a gamer. He's a really lovely guy. You know, he plays these games, you know. He's really cool guy. So
corporate chills, but now we can drive our Ferraris that the sponsorship buys us, right?
Oh, 100%. Oh, definitely. Right. As long as it's 3D printed. Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Like the toy ones, you know, like the kids. I mean, we do what we can.
What's your infill settings at? Yeah, absolutely. No. I mean, it is what it is, right? It's you know, he does great stuff. I'm very happy to say, you know, buy with confidence, dear listener. Cool. So moving on from our corporate shill thing. So Steve, I'm sure he'll be on later to talk about how Clash of Kings 23 is sold out. Imagine that.
Job done.
150. I think there's a wait list now, right?
I suppose so. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think if people are still interested in joining, they should definitely get in touch and get added to the wait list. Yeah, absolutely.
You guys did remember to buy your tickets, right?
Yes, we did. We checked.
Okay. I just confirmed actually to make sure, so I'm good too because I was worried for a second.
But actually, do you know what? I would go even if I didn't have a ticket. That might sound mad, but it would be great, you know, without the pressure of actually, you know, being thrashed in 6 games or however many games it is. You know, just go and hang out with some really nice people and
walk around and say, "Ooh, that looks like a tough position you're in."
Oh, snake eyes, unlucky. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just laugh at everyone else's misfortune. Brilliant. Who doesn't love that? Cool. Right, I think are we good for Mantic News? Mantic News. Good.
Into the Warpath.
A Warpath Firefight. Has anyone done any Firefight stuff since last episode?
Well, I have some Firefight news. Doesn't necessarily mean I've done anything. Well, actually, yeah, I have done some stuff. I have bought another Strike Force before I've even opened my previous Strike Force. So
that is a very good thing to do.
Yeah, I've had a box of Forge Fathers was sitting on my shelf. Actually, funny enough, I ordered them in Colorado, had them shipped over here to Germany, and they still haven't been opened yet. But I got a box for the Marauders. So I had the Marauders, a Mule, and I think just one of the Mantic Direct characters. So at some point, after I finish my Forces of Nature Ambush Army that I've been talking about for a little bit now, I am going to finally paint my own Firefight stuff.
That's really exciting.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I went with the dwarves and the orcs theme kind of, but in space.
Classic. Yeah. What was it that did you pick them up at Adepticon, the Marauders?
No, I should have. I was kind of working on limited space with everything I had already bought. So I just ended up ordering them direct from Mantic.
So was it a fairly spontaneous thing?
Yeah, it was, as most of my model purchases are.
Oh, buddy, you know me. Jeez. I'm terrible at that. Fantastic. No, that's really, really exciting. And I think actually in terms of your Forge Fathers, you're pretty well placed as well, because I think I'm right in saying you've got the Strike Force and then you've got the Mantic Direct 3 tanks box. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's the Annihilation Spearhead on the website.
Nice. So
Yeah.
I think the way from what Ronnie's inferred from various interviews, I think you're really well placed for the way the game's going in the next book or whatever we get, right? With more vehicles and all that kind of thing. So that sounds really cool. Obviously, as dwarfs, we don't get any flyers, or not so far. So yeah, we're good. Yeah. Clem, what about you? Any firefight stuff?
Well, the main thing that I've done, and it doesn't say much, is I've received my sci-fi spring sale box, and there's a bunch of stuff in there for Firefight, and probably also Deadzone. Like there were tons of Marauders, Mysterians, Rebs, some Forge Fathers, terrain. So yeah, I need to go through all of this and see what I can do with it. And yeah, that's about it for Firefight. The next thing is we have a gaming day coming up mid-May for Warpath Games. So that'll be my next Firefight adventure, I believe.
Is it Motion Lab or Funtainment?
No, it's also Motion Lab this time.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Any idea on numbers?
I think we had something like 8 people for Deadzone, and for Firefight we're like 3 or 4. I'm not 100% sure. It all depends on who
That's
can
really
actually
good,
make
though.
it.
That's fantastic. Strong numbers.
Yeah, it's pretty nice.
Fantastic.
Came out of nowhere, so that was also nice. You know, it's not one that I had to organize. Like someone said, "Hey, let's actually play a Deadzone gaming day," and I was like, "Oh yeah, sounds great." And then other people showed up and said, "Yeah, I want to do this as well. Like, let me dust off my Deadzone miniatures." And some other people say, "Oh, I've been interested in this game. I'll join and have a demo." So you know, it's always good to see some activity.
Amazing. And to be honest, I wish it was in a couple of months' time so I could justify coming. Yeah, but there you go. Never mind. Maybe
There'll be
next
another
time.
one. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the thinking there were also some people who wanted to join and couldn't, but ultimately what we said is, well, let's have one right now, like relatively soon.
Don't wait for the perfect time, because then
Exactly,
you'll
it'll
never do
never happen, and we'll have another one in a couple of months or whatever. But the more you play, the better it is to some extent. So yeah, that's why we just went ahead with this date.
And Trent, I think we completely forgot to mention it actually, but there's not this weekend, next weekend, there is a Deadzone tournament, I think in Nuremberg. So
In the
Oh,
area.
really?
Yeah, in the area.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I don't ever remember seeing a Deadzone tournament before, so that's pretty exciting. But unfortunately, I'm not available, so that's the weekend of the 6th, I think.
of May. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure they call it a tournament. It might be a gaming day, which
Event.
I personally prefer.
Me too.
But yeah, it's really nice to see some of that getting organized in Germany. Like the sci-fi Mantic Games are not quite as popular as Kings of War, not yet at least, and so to see them grow in popularity, in well-deserved popularity, I would say, really is quite nice. Yep.
Yeah, I think we need to find out who's running that and get in touch with them, to be quite honest, because it's Nuremberg. It's not too far away from us, Trent. It's it's a few hours, but it's not
3 hours.
Berlin.
3 hours by train from you, I think.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, that's not bad at all.
fantastic, cool.
Next time.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I just need to ping them an email. And what was it, Trent? What was it about the Marauders as well that you thought those guys, they're the ones to go for?
I've always kind of been partial to greenskins. Honestly, I when I first started looking at war games, like tabletop games, the first one I found obviously was Warhammer 40K, and so the orcs just kind of like caught my fancy. But I actually really like how Mantic has spun the orcs in their universe as like these elite mercenary soldiers. And I think the lore behind the Warpath universe is just like really, really well thought out. And I thought it would be cool to have two. I always like having two different armies when I get into a game, because my intent is to eventually like get my other friends into the game too. And what's better than dwarves and orcs fighting, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Clem, you were always a bit of a green skin fan, right?
Yeah, I am. I also happen to have some marauders. They just kind of, for some reason, they got on the third spot on the to-do list so initially I had a lot more plague stuff because I found a mega force and I had some leftovers from. I've always loved the plague models, and so a while back, Mantic did a Black Friday sale or something, and I bought a bunch of them without having a clear use case for them, but I thought they were really cool models. And so I started with the Plague Army, and then once that one was done, I was like, I could do some Marauders, or I could do some GCPS. And GCPS versus Plague sounded like a better face-off, kind of in the same idea as your strength. Like, I want to have two armies because then I can do demos, I can invite someone over and play. And I thought it looks better. I don't know, somehow it spoke to me a bit more to have GCPS versus Plague. And so my Marauders, a bunch of it is assembled in primes, but I haven't started painting them because there's always something more urgent to paint in a way. But yeah. And I have way too many 40k orcs somewhere in a box that I've never really done much with because I don't play the game. And
did you not paint the army up?
I painted a few of them because I used to play the game before Kill Team, and orcs were in there as well. Shadow Wars Armageddon. It's basically Necromunda. So
I can't believe you remembered that, because it released just before Kill Team, and then it seemed to be completely replaced by Kill Team.
Yeah, but it was I liked it because the game engine was Necromunda, and Necromunda, as you know, is one of my favorite games ever. And so to have the ability to play with Necromunda rules without the campaign stuff, so that's kind of without the best part, but still, and play that with basically any 40k model that you like. I found that pretty cool because I don't really like the rules, but I do like the models. So I have some of them that I like to paint and collect, and so yeah, having that game system around was nice. So anyway, that's how I ended up buying some orcs and then not assembling them all. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, and I've also have a load of Marauders, which has been helped by me getting, I think I got 3 sci-fi boxes from the recent sale, and I've got loads of trucks, and I haven't even really looked to see what I've got. It's so much stuff. It's a lot of stuff. But I'm very much looking forward to just kind of digging in and picking some stuff out and doing little projects. I suspect I've got a few bits and pieces to give to you guys, to be honest. But yeah, I already had a lot of stuff. I've still got a huge plague army to paint as well, which I'm enjoying very much. But yeah, so many projects. Cool.
Oh yeah, and then the main thing I forgot to mention, Chris, when you asked me why I chose Marauders. So 2 things: 1, skyscrapers. And number 2 is the Ripper killer suits. Those got so much fun. So much fun.
And I love the gun trucks as well, actually. They're really cool.
I haven't used one of those before.
I took, for my skyscrapers, I just took some of the hard plastic Marauders, and then I glued it was the dwarf packs, like they're the dwarf jump pack things on the back of my Marauders. They look kind of okay. Oh, and I forgot to mention, this coming Friday, I'll be running Firefight demos at the shop. So I was thinking it maybe of playing 650, 700 points, something like that.
Do you have anybody confirmed yet?
Yeah, well, I've got the usual suspects. I've got my friend Dennis and my friend Mario, and then hopefully we'll get a couple more in there. But I'll make sure that we've got enough for at least 2 tables worth of stuff. And yeah, I very much think I'll just be kind of coaching, and but that's fine. It's all about just growing the community, right? And
yeah, sometimes I prefer, like, after the game that we played, like a long game, sometimes it's kind of cool just to take a step back and maybe help a newer player, or even just watch.
Yeah, definitely, buddy. And I was thinking, actually, next time we do something here, I would really like to make it a Firefight / Deadzone kind of a thing. Trent's never played Deadzone. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's time we did a bit more of that here. But yeah, awesome. Oh, and I've got I think I've got 4 Iron Ancestors from it's the Dreadball model. So they're in this quite specific running pose. But I've just started going into my Forge Fathers bits box and just like gluing tank guns to their arms and stuff like that. So that's really cool. It'll give me all the different.
Sounds awesome.
I might try snipping one of the arms off and re-gluing it at a slightly different angle. I'll see how confident I feel. But yeah, I mean, those for £30 or whatever they were, that's full of stuff. And for a lunatic like me that just has all the armies, it's just like, oh, brilliant, I can use everything, right? So it's like, it's all to a greater or lesser extent, it's all helpful. There isn't any model in there that's like, oh, well, what am I going to do with this kind of thing, but it is cool for the Marauders, because some of their units, like the gun truck and the Hulk, they're actually quite difficult to get and quite expensive to get, because you have to get them in the kind of the Deadzone boxes. So just having a few of those for cheap is really cool. It's really, really helpful. So yeah, and I think I've got a load of Plague Teratons. I think maybe 4. So again, I didn't have any of those.
Useful.
They're super useful.
In the game.
Yeah, right. Same with gun trucks and the Hulks and stuff. Really useful models that, if you've got 3 or 4 of them, that's probably enough. But they're relatively expensive to get otherwise. So yeah, so that's cool. I mean, to be honest, I've got so much stuff from all of my sales boxes. I almost don't know where to start. Do you know what I mean? It's like staring at the sun. It's just, but it was cool. I love stuff like that. It's a bit of a shame I got 4 copies of the same novel or whatever it was, but never mind.
So I see a Christmas gift coming, right?
Absolutely. Here you go, Mum. You like reading, right? Here's a Warpath novel. Absolutely. Super. Right. I think that'll just about cover it. It's I want to play more Firefight, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I know we've been doing loads with Pannithor, but I think Firefight is a great game, as is Deadzone. So I think it's time I played some more of that. Cool.
We haven't heard much about the tank stuff, right? We don't really have a timeline on this yet.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. No. Mm-hmm. I don't know whether I'm making it up, but I feel like we were expecting an announcement maybe in the summer, something like that.
Yeah, all right. And there's also the beta rules, right? Like they still have the beta rules on the companion, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did play a couple of games with the beta rules. They do make the Forge Fathers and Deadzone a little bit punchier. They do just make them a little bit more dangerous. My win percentage with the Forge Fathers in Deadzone is not the highest in the world, but I always have a blast when I play them. So, like my All Brockers list is possibly not the most competitive, but it's always super, super fun. I seem to remember them getting eaten by your plague quite effectively, Clem, in your first ever game.
I think you wrote me a very good plague list, and it worked out quite fine.
Yeah,
it's often how it works for demos, right? Like you kind of give a good list for the demo, and then you explain, oh wait, maybe if you do this instead, you'll put me in a tough situation, and then this and then that, and then I mean, even if you don't intend to, you often lose the games you demo, no?
Well, I often lose lots of games, Clem. Now you mention it.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, it's of course the demo game. It's showing why something is fun, right? Why this is worth your time and your money, right? Against the 1,000 other games the person could play, right? Cool. Super. And in terms of Deadzone, again, we've sort of segued into talk about Deadzone without saying Warpath, Deadzone. I don't have a great deal to say. The other thing I'd say is I've made a bit of sci-fi terrain. And I did a little bit more today, actually. So what I did, Clem very kindly cut me some MDF bases, like terrain bases. So today I took Mantic, like sci-fi crates, glued them onto the, base, a bit of glue, 3D printed a bit of like a sci-fi road kind of thing, a bit of, sand, painted it, they look cool. So they're going to be, some kind of defensible little, like an abandoned military camp kind of thing. They look kind of cool. I made made some hills, which I followed, just a YouTube video on, and they're not bad actually. I had tried previously to build some hills for Kings of War, and I would just look at them and go, "That's not a hill. That's a piece of polystyrene that someone has attacked." Whereas with these, actually, I think, that's a hill. It kind of tricks my eye long enough. So, really happy with it. It's super, super simple. And, I might share a copy of the link. It was for Gates of Antari's YouTube channel. But it's really, really good. Really, really cool guys. And I also had a crack at, based on another one of their videos, I also had a crack at building like a sci-fi kind of bunkhouse type thing. Which looks fine. It's all, cutting polystyrene and, hot glue and stuff, but it's the first terrain I've ever made that I'm going to hang on to. It's not going straight in the bin. So that's a thing. And it's easy to do. It's messy. I suppose that's the only downside. It's messy, but it's really cheap, good fun. You don't have to really pay an enormous amount of attention to what you're doing, and except when you're using a very, very sharp knife to cut stuff. And the only other thing I found is that if the polystyrene, it's when you look at polystyrene, it's got kind of, if you snap it, it's made of little tiny circles, like little tiny polystyrene balls. I find if you cut it cleanly, it doesn't look like that, and that's important. If you kind of snap it, then to me it just looks like polystyrene. So the sections where I wasn't careful enough with the knife and it kind of snapped rather than cut, I just stuck some Vallejo kind of texture stuff onto it to try and cover up for that, because otherwise my eye is not fooled into thinking this is a hill. Is this making sense, guys?
Yeah.
And then you do that, and then you sort of you kind of bezel it, so you slice off the top in a sort of more natural angle, and then you kind of cut into it a bit. And then what was quite cool is you get a real stone, like an actual stone, and you kind of force it into the polystyrene, the edge of the polystyrene, and it does actually imprint its actual stone-like design, which is really cool, and a really cool idea. And then once you've done all that stuff, you basically paint it with a mix of Mod Podge and cheap paint. That obviously seals it, and then you just dry brush the heck out of it. I glued some sand on the top and painted that as well, because I think it always looks a bit more natural. Dry brush the heck out of it, different colors, however you want to do it. And then, glue some foliage on there or whatever, and you're good to go. It's a very simple, quick process. It's cheap as anything, it's the cost of some polystyrene and a bit of paint and stuff. But it was cool. It was a good experience to do it.
Scratch building terrain is always fun.
Do you remember what YouTube channel you found it on?
Yeah, they're called the Tabletop Warlords, and unfortunately it inspired me to buy Beyond the Gates of Antari's models.
So it did its
you
job.
Mean 3 armies.
Hey, I already had 2 armies on the shelf, Clem. They had.
You only bought 2 more. That's how you have all of the armies now. Okay.
I do not have all the armies. There's like 10 armies.
Yet.
I barely touched the surface, but it's I suppose we're talking about it now. Yeah, so it's two extremely enthusiastic guys in the US. And they're just really, really nice guys. And they recently made a campaign. They make beautiful terrain. The tables look great. And Beyond the Gates of Antares is one of those games that I always assumed a load of people were playing it somewhere else. It was never in the town I was in, but I assumed has such a massive model range and all the rest of it. And it was from Warlord Games. Now, I don't fully understand, but as I understand, well, we're talking about this. We're doing this now. So they had 2nd edition ready to go, and then Warlord Games basically got cold feet and said, okay, we're not going to do it, because I think they just assumed they wouldn't get their money back. So instead, unfortunately, they fired the game designer who was in charge of it, like the product owner or whatever. But it's a very strange situation. So this is really recently this has happened. So he's turned around and said, okay, I'm not an employee of Warlord anymore, but can I do this as a hobby and keep developing the game as a hobby? And they said yes. So I think Warlord owns a company called Skytrex, which is a factory or manufacturing facility somewhere in Loughborough. I'm going to say somewhere in the Midlands in the UK. They'll continue to make models, and the guy will continue to write the rules in his spare time. So it's kind of a bit of a zombie game now, to be quite honest with you. Everything is available for free on something called the Nexus. So all the rules, the army list, etc., all that stuff is available for free. Just watching these, Warlord, whatever they're called, tabletop Warlords. They came up with this now 5-part narrative campaign that is just fantastic, really interesting. But most importantly, they're just having a great time, right? So at some point, I'm definitely going to convince you guys to have a game with me of this. But
sure.
It was,
I think it's a really good state to be in from the gamer's perspective, right? As long as the game isn't dead entirely, although I'm not sure what dead means for tabletop games. But I know it from Necromunda, for example. I had a community edition, still has to this day. And so long after Games Workshop stopped developing it, you still had basically fans of the game maintain the rules and really take great care of it, and make some changes that come from the player base and not from the miniature release agenda, if you see what I mean. And I think it's really not the worst situation to be in for a game. I know Warmaster is in a similar situation right now. You can't buy a Warmaster rulebook from Games Workshop. You can't buy miniatures from them. But there's a really strong going community that supports it, and
it's player led, not model release. Yeah, you're totally right.
Exactly. And Kings of War to some extent, and Mantic Games I think are also great because they have rule committees, right? And the way the game is actually directed, sure, some of it comes from the releases, like it's synchronized with the release. It's not dictated by the releases, I would say. And the balance and everything is adjusted by the rule committee. And these people are like the most fanatic players that you can find, and they really know the rules, they know the community, and they really try to do what's best for the game, not necessarily only thinking about the business. So I think it's actually a pretty good state to be in for a game.
I agree, buddy. I mean, if it weren't for the rules community, I don't think any of us would be here now, quite honestly, if Mantic was still developing the rules. But yeah. And interestingly, so Warlord had a sale a few years ago, where they were selling stuff off really cheap. So that's when I picked up some stuff for Beyond the Gates of Antares. But I kind of thought Kings of War would be my fantasy game and Gates of Antares would be my sci-fi game. And obviously since then we got into Deadzone and Firefight was released. So it's kind of, I'm trying to make it occupy a spot I don't really have anymore because I really love Firefight. I'm going to keep playing Firefight, right? So, but it's cool. And I don't know if you know anything about the rules of Gates of Antares. Bolt Action has the same mechanic, has one core mechanic which I think is super, super cool, where instead of you go, I go for activations or whatever, every unit you have in the game has a dice, like an order dice, like special bespoke dice. So if you've got 5 units, you get 5 dice. And what you do is you put those dice in a bag with your opponent's dice and shake it all up. And then you take it in turns to draw a dice out of the bag. And if it's your dice, you can activate a unit.
Oh man, that's pretty unique. I thought that's wild. Well, that would be pretty wild.
Yeah, so you can't plan ahead, and there's kind of an Overwatch type option. So you can, put stuff in Overwatch or get them to hunker down or something like that. But it just seems extremely intense that, it all comes down to the bag.
I feel like that might cause some feel bad moments too, if somebody gets like 5 activations in a row or whatever, or however it works.
But
Sometimes
it depends
it's
on
actually
the
bad to get all your
situation.
activations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It depends on the situation. It might be like that trend, or it might be actually that's really bad for my strategy or whatever. It depends what you want to do. But it is a very narrative-driven game. I know it's a really, really tiny community, right? But no one's trying to kick the other person's teeth in, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, because they want to play a second game.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it's because I played bolt action a lot. Another mechanic that I think makes a big difference is the suppression mechanic. So with the pinning markers,
which they also have in Antares.
Yeah. So of course, it's the same game engine. It's an evolved version of it, I suppose. It's a bit more complex than this, but anyway. And so your units are more and more useless when they get tired or they get shot at and stuff like this. And what I like about it, it's not about necessarily killing your opponents. It's sometimes just disabling them, stopping their units from being efficient. And from a tactical perspective, bolt action was really interesting. And I've always wanted to try Antares as well, but kind of a lack of player and time.
Yeah, exactly. And actually, guys, I don't know what you think about this, but so I've also got 2 bolt action armies because I went, hey, this is a really great game system. I'm going to play this. So I've got German Grenadiers and a British army, but I did play it a couple of times and I do enjoy the gameplay very much, but I kind of feel a little bit uncomfortable with the fact that this was real and it was 80 years ago. And I don't know whether that's just me, but the idea of, like, for example, there is an SS army in the game. And I just find that so weird, given the real history that was, and if it was 100 years ago, 200 years ago, I don't have a problem with it. Well, maybe 100 years ago I do. But does anyone else have that slight uncomfortable feeling?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I
mean, a bit
mean,
weird. If it's space Nazis, that's okay. But if it's,
Yeah. I mean, it depends on how you approach it, right? Like, for me, initially, I really had the same type of reaction. But my previous club, they played it a lot. And so I borrowed armies a few times and I really enjoyed the actual game. And so I said, you know what, let me just grab a box and get started. It's also relatively cheap and relatively easy to get started with it. And I mean, obviously, our grandparents, right, were very involved with this. And so it does have a special meaning. And also, once I moved to Berlin, like I did play bolt action with German players. It's like, isn't it great that we're doing this instead of, if it was 70 years ago, would be like not playing it, Like, it does make you think, but in a way, it's actually good to think about it because, I don't know, like, it also was kind of an excuse for me to read more about it and learn a bit about it. And I mean, sure, I'd rather play other games, but I'm glad I played it as well. And it's a good system. Anyway, Steve, you arrived right in the middle of a
perfect timing, Mr.
Perfect timing.
That's such a deep conversation. I feel like I didn't want to interrupt this exploration about the fact that you've both occupied Germany, you've annexed Germany, the pair of you from France and England. You've come in, you've taken their jobs, you've taken their women. I mean,
not quite. I brought my own, but
you brought your own. Not even good enough. No, you're saying the German women aren't even good enough for you. How French?
Not what I'm saying, but sure.
Steve, so lovely to have you on. Hello.
Sorry, I'll be going now.
Someone was just on a small sidetrack on Gates of Antares that evolved into bolt action. I won't name names, but we all know.
And the other thing to mention just very quickly is the Gates of Antares has a mining sci-fi faction of rockmen. I mean, it's not Brockers, but it's pretty close, Clem. It's pretty close. So you can, spoiler alert, guess which faction I'm playing. So let's pretend I'm going to edit this, which I'm very much not. Oh, joining us is Steve Hildrew. Hello, Steve. Lovely to have you on.
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, really well, buddy. You've actually joined us at an absolutely ideal time because we've just done the sci-fi stuff.
Well, I assume it's an hour in or so you probably just did the intro. That's what my assumption was.
7 hours in, exactly.
Barely.
Sci-fi. I
Fantastic.
love sci-fi. Love everything about it.
So, Steve, I hope you've had more than a cold sandwich and a beer for your dinner this time in your lonely hotel room.
I had a lasagna. I went to an actual restaurant and had a lasagna on my own like a weirdo. And that the waitress seemed extremely confused. I just wanted the lasagna. She's like, don't you want anything else? I'm like, no. So then I felt bullied into ordering a dessert, which is why I'm a bit late. But the dessert I had was horrible.
A drink?
No, she's like a side dish. She's like, it's literally just a lasagna. There's nothing with it. I'm like, well, it's already like £13. I'm not going to buy anything else.
Yeah. How much do expenses reach to?
Well, yeah, that's a couple. Let's not go into that.
Yeah, good point. Okay, super. Yeah, thanks for not answering that question. The conversation would have got even weirder than it is already. Super, Steve. So let's go. Has anyone got anything else to talk about regarding sci-fi stuff, which we all love so dearly? Be quiet, Steve.
Yeah.
I do like sci-fi.
You do. I know you've just got it. It does make perfect sense. Everything you've said previously, through the words of Chris Lynch, makes perfect sense about your relationship with games. Makes perfect sense. Super. So, Pannithor. So, Kings of War. Steve, how was Birmingham Bull Run?
Oh, it was really good. It feels like a very long time ago now, but of course it wasn't that long ago. It's only 3 weeks or so. But no, it was brilliant. Everyone turned up eventually.
Who got the beautiful helmet to take home?
A chap called Cy Brand, who's a lovely chap with a fantastic moustache, and he's an extremely good player. And he, what was he playing? I can't remember. But he's a great player. Normally he plays Ratkin, but he wasn't playing Ratkin this time. I think he might have been playing Herd or something like that. Or no, he's playing Basileans. He was playing Basileans, and he did really well, which is not really unexpected. But he dethroned Andy 2D6, who won the last 2 Birmingham Bull Runs. So we had Andy, who was wearing his crown from the previous Bull Run the entire day. We had him crown Cy at the end of the event, and Andy was actually trying to encourage me to start a chant of death to the old king. And I was like, it's a little bit nihilistic of you, chap. So we did.
Did he have to take off his crown?
And I
was there like a lowering of the flag ceremony?
Yeah, and then we just cut his head right off. So
yeah, the king is dead. Long live the king! Yeah, absolutely.
The king is dead.
That speaks to me. Cutting heads. That's of royalty. I feel I'm back in the conversation now.
I didn't watch
right
much Peaky Blinders, but they don't muck around in Birmingham, do they?
No, in general, no. They don't. I mean, no, it was a great day. Everyone had a good time, and I booked another one in November, and it's already sold out. So that was, 32 players signed up already. So that was pretty crazy.
That says everything you need to know, doesn't it, Steve? To be fair.
Yes, it seems to go all right.
You need to make them more expensive or something, or have larger rooms.
They're already pretty expensive. I know, in terms of UK events, it's not cheap. It's £22. You get a lunch, but I don't know. People just like a well-run event. Maybe to be honest, there aren't many events in the Midlands, but only it's a big event, so the more players, it's more ranking points. Maybe I don't know. You get lots of new players every time, so it's cool. I'm excited.
True story. Many years ago, I had a job interview in the Midlands, in Birmingham, to be precise. And the recruitment person said to me, "Okay, if they ask why you want to move from London to Birmingham, tell them you have a girlfriend who lives here or something." And I was like, that's a really stupid idea. No, I'm going to say, look, I don't want to move to Birmingham, but I'm so willing to do this job, I would move to Birmingham to do it. So I got to the interview, and I was interviewed by someone I used to I didn't work with them directly, but we knew each other, which was weird. So so we had a big laugh about that. And it was sort of like, okay, let's get through the formalities. So we had the interview, got to the question, why do you want to move to Birmingham? Well, I don't want to move to Birmingham, And I told the truth, and I didn't get the job. Feedback, They didn't believe he wanted to move to Birmingham. Well, no, I've discussed this. I don't want to move to Birmingham. How many people go, yeah, I live in London, but I'd be delighted to live in Birmingham? Maybe I'm being unkind. I don't know much about Birmingham, if I'm honest, but
it's not. I mean, I've only lived there for 22 years, but it's not my favourite place in the world. I wouldn't choose to live here. I moved.
I mean,
here
you
'cause
did choose to
My
live there. If
girlfriend
you
lived
think
there.
about it.
No, I moved there because my girlfriend lived there.
But you made a choice to live there, though, Steve. I don't understand how that's different.
Well, I made a choice to be with a woman who lived there.
Did you
Which is
give her
kind
the
of
option of moving with you somewhere else? Did you think to
No,
ask that?
because she had her job was there, right? And she was in the industry, so she couldn't move away. And then we had 2 children, and so I couldn't leave there until they were 18, and one of them's 16. So I'm 2 years away from being able to leave Birmingham. But then I got remarried
Wait,
and had
are you
another
leaving one of
child
them
who's
behind?
6.
Are you leaving one of
No,
the
the other
children
one
behind?
one of them's gone to university.
Oh, good. Right. Okay. The younger
She's
one
already
is
escaped
right.
to London, and she never wants to leave. And well, I've got a 6-year-old, so I don't know what I'm going to do. I just I've Birmingham trapped myself. It's all right. It's cheap to live. You know, it's all right. Why are we talking about Birmingham? It's like the worst place. It's in the Midlands. It's in the middle of England. It's easy to get to. It's
Birmingham Bull Run. Yeah. It's easy to travel past.
Easy to travel. Yeah. My house wasn't as expensive as it would have been in London.
That's true, but you know, could you have afforded it if it was in London?
No, absolutely not. No way. For what my house cost in Birmingham, you could get like 1 room in London, probably. I should imagine.
Yeah, still, but it's the second city. I feel like there must be. I once went to a house party in, I'm going to say Edgbaston as well. That's my other, yeah. And
Nice, yeah.
a lot of people were doing illegal things, and I was sort of like, do you know what? I'm just going to go to sleep on the sofa now. I've really had enough. I went to sleep as early as I could possibly get away with it, and on the train back, I was thinking, I don't want to put myself in this situation anymore. Do you know what I mean? That's enough.
I'd have joined in with illegal things, frankly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. So anyway, Birmingham Bull Run was a massive success. Was it a 1-day tournament, Steve?
Yeah, 1 day, 3 games, 1995.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it went really well. I think I used the Mantic Companion for the first time. But I made everyone fill in paper as well because I'm paranoid. And
good to have a
and
backup.
sure enough, right at the end it cocked up and I had to re-enter all the results on the spreadsheet, so it's just as well.
Was it a glitch or without going into too much of it? But
it was a glitch. So I realised one of the scores was wrong and I went back and altered it, which caused, and it added the score that I changed the person's score to, added to his original score, so that he basically won the tournament despite the fact he came 6th. So I was like, this isn't right, and I couldn't put it right. I couldn't get hold of Elliot. He did reply within the hour, bless him, but obviously he's not like on call on a Sunday. So I had a spreadsheet anyway, and plus I had soft scores in my tournament, so I needed the spreadsheet anyway to calculate the soft scores and like sportsmanship and stuff or whatever. So it was a bit of a tense 20 minutes while I sat looking stressed at a computer, tapping in pieces of paper. And I just need to get away from paper, entering pieces of paper into a spreadsheet, because the more players you go, the harder it is. And my scoring system was a little bit complex. Like I had people like voting for their top 5 armies and ranking all of the players that they played in order of how much they enjoyed the games. It's just like, while I think it's a nice system, I think the data entry is poor. And so it's either learn to use Google Sheets or change the way I score it. And I think I'll probably just change the way I score it.
Right. That's really interesting, buddy. Yeah. Yeah, the idea of you then doing data entry when they fill out a form doesn't sound great, to be fair. I would definitely make a load of mistakes. If you give me a simple repetitive task like that, I'll be okay for about 3 minutes, and then my mind will wander, and then I won't notice I'm doing absolute garbage. You know, like when you're young and doing data entry, I'm just not very good at it, you know? I
am good at it. I used to do a lot of data entry jobs. I don't know you, Clem, but I was just... tapping in numbers is I'm pretty happy with, but doing it when everyone's looking at you and waiting and chatting, trying to chat to you and have like a funny conversation about, Steve, you know Basileans, I'm like, fuck, just go away. But what can we say? Oh, sorry, Clem, go for it, buddy.
No, I was just curious to hear from Steve what do you want to do differently for the next event? Like, do you have some knowledge to infuse to us? As a expert tournament organizer, and I don't mean that for sarcasm, actually. So
it's pretty good sarcastic, to be honest. I just think minimizing the amount of paper, I think, is a good idea. I think, using data entry is fine. I think Elliot's got some streamlining of the app to do, which is fine. Because I'm constantly thinking about Clash of Kings, right? Because we've got 150 players, is a significantly more arduous data entry task than 32. Even though we'll have a team of like 5 TOs as opposed to be doing it on my own. I think I want to simplify the paint scoring. I think I want to simplify the sportsmanship scoring, just to really cut it down and make it a lot easier, make the scoring a lot easier. That's like, my whole thing is it should be easy for the player and it should be easy for the TO as well. Everything should just smoothly flow. I'm a worrier. I worry constantly. So I over obsess about the details. So I make sure that everything is prepared constantly. So, before a tournament, everything is laid out ready for me, so I can literally just go in and just put them out. Everything's out. All the tables is laid out before, all the papers laid out before, everything's ready. So I don't like it when I then have to go back and redo data entry or something like that, because that messes up with my schedule. You just need to you think about it in terms of, I used to be a project manager. You have to minimize the risk in your process. So you have to have backup, and you have to have like redundant. No single points of failure. Yeah, redundant. Thank you, redundancy. So I persuaded a friend to be like a ringer, because that was another thing. People were late, and I was going to have to play. Which was my first tournament, which a nightmare to play NTO at the same time. If you're doing data entry. So luckily everyone did turn up this time, but I've now persuaded a friend to be my ringer and to help with stuff. So I'll have him around next time, which should make things easier. So
that's a great. So you've always got an even number. That sounds fantastic. And did your Gungans make an appearance?
No. My ringer list was a Varangur list, which would have been much easier to play. But no, I'm taking them to Northern Kings tournament in May, in a few weeks. So I need to finish painting one model for them, and then make a display board, which I'm kind of just started. So yeah, that'll be fun.
Will that be your first display board? Have you made a few before?
I've made display boards before. I think this is my most elaborate one. I made one for Rift Forge Orcs, which is very big, because there's orcs have got a massive footprint, right? This is basically just huge cliffs that they can stand on 3 tiers. Whereas this one has got, and I made one when I went to Adepticon, because Americans always do a display board, which was pretty much the same, but I cut it in half so it would fit into a suitcase, and it had little slots you could put the characters in. But this one's got, it's like, because Gungans live in a swamp, don't they? So it's kind of swamp themed. So it's got water in it, and it's got some waterfalls. It will do, he says confidently, and like undergrowth and vines and stuff. But it's currently at the stage of, I've cut the polystyrene out and I've covered it with stuff. Yeah. So that's where it's at in a minute.
Sounds amazing.
It does sound American. It can sound amazing. Whether it looks amazing or not, I don't know.
I'm sure it will. It's your determination, Steve. You'll pull it through somehow. I'm sure. I have every confidence in you. And what can you tell us in terms of Basileans? How are we saying it? Basileans? Is that how we're saying?
Basalians, I believe, is the official pronunciation.
Basalians. I just think of the herb basil.
Yeah.
They won. Now that they did. It's a shame, because they're quite a strong Mantic IP, but it doesn't seem like they're the most popular army in the world. Was it lots of the ogres? What was the...
No, so I think it was mainly flying. Let me bring it up. I think maybe, it speaks to the strength of Kings of War as a game, right? So I think Sai won the game because Sai's a really good player of Kings of War. He's excellent. So I think he sorry. He's I think any army that he takes, he's going to be a fearsome opponent. So that there is that. But I think it was largely flying, and my tournament had quite a few newer players, and I think newer players struggle with flying. Let me see if I can find his list for you. Here we are, the third Birmingham Bull Run, because it was third. Yeah, Cybran came first. Here is his list. Actually, first and second were Basileans, which is a kind of thing. So he had a horde of Sisterhood infantry with sharpness. So defense 3, melee 3.
Nice to see them on the table. I think they're really cool models and cool idea.
And he had 2 regiments of Sisterhood Scouts infantry, a regiment of Elohi. Do you have the formation? No, he did not. Wow. So a regiment of Elohi, a horde of Palace Guard with Staying Stone, a troop of Gur Panthers, 2 regiments of Knights, one with Strider, one with Strength, a Phoenix with the Ancient Phoenix upgrade, Bane Chan like standard bearer with the loot. He had a paladin chaplain hero mounted with the blade of slashing and host shadow beast 2, and an ogre palace guard captain. So not your traditional Basilean list build. It wasn't flying circus at all. It was. I mean, it's pretty fast. It's got Gur Panthers, Elohi, 2 knight
cavalry
regiments.
there.
Bunch of but it's, if I look at that list, I'm thinking it's very fragile. It's got, it's only got 1 Elohi regiment. It's got lots of knights in it. I think Sai's just a really good player, if I'm honest.
Yeah, and the knights are they knights with Thunder 2 rather than Crush 1? So if you don't, if you're not getting the hit exactly right, you're going to struggle. Yeah, really interesting.
I've got Brew of Strength, which is a good idea. It basically turns them into Abyssal Cav. Then this one has Strider. So you're using your Gur Panthers and your scouts basically to chaff up the enemy, and then you're smashing into them with knights and hoping they die.
And it seems like they did. Yeah.
He's just, I think he's just a good player. He's used to playing Rat, which die all the time. So it's nice. The second list was also Basilean, which is far more flying. That was Richard Luke, who's a lovely player. He lives near me, actually. And he had lots of Elohi, lots of Elohi, lots of Gur Panthers and stuff. So, and some Panther Lancers. That was another really fast list. Yeah. So there you go.
Oh, fantastic. Anything else to be said about different army lists? Anything unexpected? Or, did Night Stalkers come last or anything unusual?
Well, no, there wasn't. The really good players that came, and there was quite a few of them, played unusual armies for them, I suppose. So Chris Lynch, who's UK Master, he borrowed my Orcs because he's trying to play a different list at every event. And he was doing okay until he came up against Basileans, and they just outsped him severely. Who else was there? Yeah, there's a few of the Moonrakers were there playing. They had a mixed. I think 1995 is a difficult level for some people. They're used to playing 2300, and it's good. It's easy to be dominant at 2300. And 1995 is a little bit more difficult, a little bit more nuanced, I think. Maybe a bit more rock paper scissors. I don't know, but it was. There was a mixture of lists. There wasn't any. We didn't. Certainly within the Midlands meta, and here we don't have people that tend to bring all the kind of net lists and stuff. People like to bring things that are a little bit more interesting, a bit more balanced. It's just a very nice tournament with very nice people. I'm really happy with it.
Fantastic. Sounds great. Have we still got Trent on?
I've noticed he's been lurking here in the corner, but I don't recognise the picture because there's no moustache on it.
I'm still here. Yeah, no, I got rid of the mustache, unfortunately. I know. It's the end of an era.
Is it coming back, or is it gone for good?
No, it's gone for good. I'm tired of wiping mustard out of it after eating my brat in Germany, so it just didn't make sense anymore.
As a man,
it didn't have to make sense, Trent. Get it back.
I can't grow a moustache, and my intense jealousy that you can. And the fact you've just deliberately got rid of it. What? It's just, I mean, you're dead to me.
Is it quite wispy, Steve? What happens when you try?
I just look like an effete French swordsman. The last time I was in my 20s, the last time I tried, no offense to them.
None taken.
But nothing, not a lot grows, basically. I grow a suggestion of a goatee. And I'm of an age when it comes to grey now, and it's not a good look. So
yeah, me too. Yeah, my ginger beard is greying beautifully. Actually, to be fair, I'm quite happy with that development. To be quite honest with you, yeah.
You can grow a full beard, both of you. Clement and you both have this beautiful giant face of hair, just kind of sprouting through you like a manly amount of testosterone, kind of rampaging through your systems. Whereas I'm like a baby seal.
Is it maybe so? You've had so many children. Is all your virulence is gone?
It's all down below. I'm very hairy from the waist down. I'm not sure that's a good image for anyone.
Moving on.
Like a centaur. Super. Stick with us, dear listener. This conversation will end soon, I promise. Super. Fantastic.
So what did you say, Chris? If we want to have stuff cut out of the show, we need to make a sign and scratch our nose.
Oh, yeah, Steve, I have a great new system.
Do you see me scratching my nose? That now is the time.
Yeah. So if you want something...
Bringing it back to Trent, I've just been listening to Trent on Countercharge from his Adepticon experience. I kind of... Have we covered that? Have you talked to Trent about Adepticon?
No.
We will
That's to come.
later.
That's to come in our topic of the month.
I'm excited.
Super. So, obviously, Steve, running a tournament. Have you any other Kings of War stuff to discuss?
Oh, we've sold out Adepticon. No, not Adepticon. Sorry, Clash of Kings.
Yes, amazing. 150. Is there now a waiting list?
So it's people that we've got plenty. We've got maybe 8 to 10 people have asked to be informed when the refunded tickets go live in June. But I was just looking at the stats. We've had 25% of the attendees are not from the UK.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so I was just looking at the stats. So we've got 7 from France, 7 from Spain, 6 from France, 4 from Poland, 4 from the US, and then like a smatter of like Netherlands, Sweden, Austria, Germany, Ireland, Argentina, Australia, Norway, Singapore, we know who that is, and Switzerland. So we've got people from literally the globe, apart from Africa.
So exciting. It's quite interesting actually mentioning countercharge. Rob has a few times, I think it's kind of pricked his national pride that, he's come on, we could get 150 people in the US. We can't let these limeys beat us for numbers.
It's travel though, isn't it? This is the thing. So in the UK, it's easy to travel. So if I look down the list of attendees, pretty much everyone, that I recognise nearly all of the UK attendees. There's about maybe a third of them that I don't know or I haven't met. All right, so it's just like every active player is coming. That's like 100 of them or 80 of them, and there's a bunch of European people, and some other further travelled attendees, and then a few kind of casual players who decided to come along, which is awesome. So I think what it tells me is there's room for expansion, for newer players, and there are players who I know who haven't got tickets. So we need to think about getting bigger for next year and stuff. But it's just travel, isn't it? In the US, it's very expensive, and people from Europe, I think, forget how bloody massive America is. It's just a really place, and travel is getting more expensive. And it's not just travel; it's accommodation as well. So a train ticket and a hotel in Nottingham is a fraction of the price of a flight and a hotel in Chicago and a conference ticket to Adepticon. That's like $1,000 cost. So you might be paying £200 or £300 to go to Clash of Kings once a year. It's less than a third of the cost of going to Adepticon. So that's pretty much the reason, I think.
I think the reason is because you're organising it, Stephen.
It's
awesome.
Me. You're right.
Yeah, it's just your pure magnetism. Yeah,
that's what it is.
Economics doesn't come into it when you've got raw natural appeal.
I'm seeing people just want to come sniff my face.
Yeah, grow a beard, and next year you can double the size of the room.
Yes, perfect. Or moustache.
I can't grow a beard, Clem. I can't.
Try. Just maybe
fake
have a T-shirt that says "I have not shaved in 6 months," and this is
till you make it.
You're gonna go strap on a giant Santa beard. So I have Trent's moustache. Trent, if you could just grow one again and then just cut it very carefully off, I shall stick it to my face.
I like that plan.
Just a couple of days for you. Focus really hard. There it is again.
I find as I get older, I don't necessarily have less hair. It's just in more unexpected places. It's sort of beautiful. It's beautiful anyway. It's migrating. Like the herds on the Serengeti.
Nose again, Chris.
Yeah, exactly.
Rubbing my nose again, just saying.
Right. You've got to write it, yes. So, Steve, we have a new system. So, if you want something edited out of the podcast, write it in the chat with a timestamp. Right. So, at least that gives me a realistic chance to do it. That's the idea. Okay. Yeah, we had it.
Just typing my entire contribution. There we go.
Perfect. Super. So we're talking about, believe it or not, dear listener, we're talking about Kings of War. So, yes. So I painted up Steve. So did you back the Kickstarter for Dungeon Saga Origins? I think it was called Origins. Yeah.
Yeah. So I put £1 in to give me the opportunity to back it at a later date if I felt so. So I want to, but A, it's a lot of money, and B, I'm not convinced my family will play it with me.
It's fair. It's very sensible.
And I could buy the retail box when it comes out, But I also want to spot. So I'm still as of yet undecided. I might be a last minute backer depending. Because I've still got League of Infamy in its box unopened.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I've played a fair bit of the Hellboy box set, but then I've got literally all of the expansions, I think, which are literally untouched. So if you're going to apply logic to it, that's a very sensible thing to do. I painted up, actually, just sort of with the Kickstarter coming, I actually took the time to paint up the existing Dungeon Saga box set, the one that's been out for 8 years or whatever it is. And we actually had a game of it. Trent and I went to Berlin and we visited Clem, and one of Clem's friends joined us and his wife Sarah, and we had a lovely old time, I would say. Clem made an excellent Overlord. If I do prefer it when I think actually you can get some cards upgrade to make the Overlord an AI, basically. So it's because I always think it's a bit weird when one of the players is the bad guy and everyone is on the same team except for one person. Clem did a brilliant job of being the evil Overlord, and he sort of reveled in the evil. But I always think it is a bit weird when something happens that's really good for 4 people but really bad for the one. It's always the one, but actually I was really impressed by the game. Very, very simple.
I mean, it depends on how you play it, right? Like, even as an Overlord, somehow I kind of want you guys to get through it but struggle a little bit. So it's
more
still,
like DMing than
it's still a nice narrative in somehow, like I'm not here to necessarily win the game or anything. It's just I don't know.
And just dialing back a little bit, it was a very interesting experience. So there were rail strikes, Steve, in Germany. So they stopped technically at 11 a.m. and I was getting the train in the afternoon. But of course, the knock-on effect was really bad. So I was sitting on my train at Frankfurt waiting for it to leave, and it was very, very late. And as I was sitting on the train, I got an email to say your train is cancelled and is not going. And then about 2 minutes later, we departed. So it was pretty disorganized, and bless Trent, he ended up having to get so I think you got up at 4:00 in the morning on the Saturday to come and join us.
It actually ended up working out though, because number one, the train wasn't busy at all. I think there was like 3 people in my car, and it was really easy getting in, really easy to get a taxi, and then I ended up getting the shop right at right at 11, I think. So I think I was one of the last ones there, but it was just as everything was getting started, so it worked out. But yeah, it was a long day. It was a very long day.
But it was amazing of you to still make it, buddy. To be honest, I couldn't come, and it's amazing of you to do that. But
yeah, I'm glad I made it.
Yeah, me too, very much so. But yeah, so anyway, Dungeon Saga, it's a simple game, but I think we were all very impressed with it, right?
Yeah, we had a great time, and we had no idea about the rules because I think none of us took time to read them before we played again. So I played it 4 years ago, I believe, or longer than that even. But I had forgotten everything, obviously. And so we were kind of trying to figure it out along, because we didn't play the introductory games either, right? Like, who does that? So we jumped in immediately to the adventure number 1. The whole crew, like the whole 4 heroes, and I'm sure we did tons of mistakes from the rules perspective, but worked out okay. I don't know, what did you think about it, Trent?
Was this normal Dungeon Saga? Or was this the
the normal? The Dwarf King's Quest or something. Yeah, the core game.
And what are the 4 characters? Just because I don't know, I've never even played it or seen it. What's the 4 characters in the
So we had the mage, the elf ranger, the
who was who as well?
dwarf, and the barbarian, right? Were the 4 ones?
So the barbarian is Olaf, I think.
Yeah.
So I think you can have him in the Northern Alliance.
Yeah, Olaf the Barbarian.
The dwarf is Rodin or something.
Yeah,
like this. I think.
So who played who? Who's the barbarian of the 4?
My wife.
So
Sarah was the barbarian.
So we had a lot of fun picking the characters. So in advance, I'd said to Clem, I want to be the barbarian. So of course we gave Sarah the first pick. She didn't know I'd said that, and so she was, I'll be the barbarian. So of course, I'm very gallant, so obviously I didn't kick up a massive fuss.
Well, you said something else, Chris. You said, I want to be the barbarian, if I can, and I definitely, absolutely do not want to be the mage.
Yeah, exactly. So the only thing that matters to me is I wouldn't be the mage. And Trent didn't mind who he was as long as he wasn't the elf.
Yeah, the dirty elf.
So Sarah had picked the barbarian. There were three of us, other players and 3 other characters, and we decided to leave it in the dice god's lap. So Trent was the elf.
That was the mistake.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what happened. And so, yes. He's such a jerk, that mage. Honestly, I don't know who he thinks he is. Honestly, oh God. But I did have a look in the Dungeon Explorer's Companion or whatever, which Clem was very, very kind to give me a copy of.
The Adventurer's
Companion book, which there we go, it's in front of me here. And actually, there's some really cool extra characters, which thanks to the Mantic sale recently, I have basically all of them. And the Trident Realm character, the Naiad, she's a demon hunter. She sounds awesome. Why am I this jerky mage guy? But they are, for better or for worse, the Dungeon Saga heroes in the box, they are absolute archetypes, So, presumably they're popular for a reason, but I'd rather be, something a bit weirder, a bard or something. But anyway, it was a really cool game, and you can, as one of the heroes go, then Clem goes as the overlord, and you basically move and then do something, and you can't change that. So if you want to, you've got to move then fight or whatever. But there was a cool interaction going on with Clem's skeletons. Basically, we had to do a certain amount of damage. I think it was 3 to destroy them completely. And if not, they'd come back as a pile of bones. So he could bring, reanimate skeletons there. So it was it was simple, which was great because we hadn't, as Clem said, we hadn't actually read the rules in advance. And it was quite funny because it was like, okay, it was already about 10 o'clock at night when we started playing. And we had the options of, do we want to play the 2 kind of learn to play scenarios, or do we want to just play one proper scenario? And Clem, your friend, made the very good point. What's the point of us playing 2 learn to play scenarios if we're not then going to play a scenario? So we just kind of, ran ahead with it. But because the game was so simple, I feel like I didn't properly understand my magic, but, I got the fireball spell okay. So we did, it was, do you know what, Steve? It was really fun. So, I'm very much looking forward to next time we'll meet up playing the next scenario. Let's just, let's keep the train rolling. But it was good. It was very good, Steve. But if it's going to sit in the box, doesn't really matter, does it really? It's tricky.
I think so. So, I'd like to. I think it's, getting my children to do anything that isn't a video game is tough. But I'm just enjoying the mental image of Clement kind of DMing, and then you walk into the room and Chris is like, I cast Fireball! Because it's the only thing you know how to do. You're like, you're in a 1-by-1 room. I don't care. I cast Fireball! Because it's the only spell you've got. I'm blowing it.
It's the answer to every question. Fireball! No, there was also a stone feet one that I was doing all right. And there was also another one, Inflame or something. I'm not getting that right. But there was another fire-related one that was very powerful that I didn't need line of sight for. But yeah,
I'm sure I let you get away with cheating on your spells, but that's all right. You guys still won. That's what matters.
10 fireballs. Yeah. But it was...
that's why I think... sorry, go on, Karen.
Yeah, just very quickly. Ronnie mentioned it actually in the one of the videos with the new Kickstarter for the new version. Is a bit weird when you're just endlessly fighting the chest to try and win a fight against the chest. So I'm glad they've changed the rules along that. We had our barbarian who was fighting the chest to open it, and Clem was fighting on behalf of the chest. No, you have to wait another turn. And he got to the end of the game and we had to bash through the door, and all of the undead stuff was dead, and it was like, do we really have to sit here keep rolling until we bash the door down? No, we've won. We bashed it down. So I'm glad they got rid of that. But other than that, it's a really, really, really good game.
That's why I think League of Infamy sounded so fun, and why I was really invested in it was that a group of friends like yourselves, it's nice to do a co-op game and we're going to do it together, blah, 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 and Clement's the bad guy. But actually, to have League of Infamy where you're both competing with each other as well as trying to get to the goal together to see who is the most, just sounded so much fun. You know, so you at the last thing, you're desperately trying to backstab your friend whilst not dying to the whatever the elf dracons. It sounded just. I think it just sounded brilliant. I think I just need friends. This is the problem.
Well, you might not keep them for long with that. I had something very similar with a game called Call Space, and me and my friend Dennis played it with a group. And I very distinctly remember Dennis saved somebody's life. He literally got out of the escape pod to go and rescue someone, and then saved his life literally. The guy got up, shot Dennis in the head, stole his stuff, and ran away. And at that point, I was like, guys, I don't know. Come on. Come on, guys.
We see. I do have a group of friends. Our group of Kings of War players. We talked about doing D&D together because my friend Russell is, he's a multi-system. He'll play anything. But at the end of the day, I get to play games so infrequently that I'd rather play Kings of War. And that's the problem, is that in the one day a fortnight I get to play, I want to play the game that I like, and I'm sure I wouldn't regret it. It's just that it's easier to hook up with one person, just play Kings of War 1 minute. So
I still wonder if we could play something like a dungeon crawler on a Skype call. I'm sure we could figure it out.
Yeah, it probably could work, especially if everyone has the box, right? Because if you needed to, you could set it up on your table at home. And,
we just have each person rolls the dice for themselves, and the DM, whoever is running it, has the board and the cameras on the board. I don't think that's infeasible at all.
Yeah, no, that actually sounds good.
Yeah.
Let's try this, Chris. That's your mission in life. Figure out a multi-camera system and invite us over to play games on a Skype call.
Yeah.
We could do it, film it, and put it on YouTube and be really famous, like Critical Role.
Yeah, I mean, you could just put it up on Death by Dragons if you wanted to, buddy.
Do it.
No, he's trying to keep quality content there only.
Oh, no, okay, all right.
You haven't worked the channel very much then.
Look, I'm very happy for us to do video. I'm just not going to edit it, as you guys know. So, someone's going to have to step up if we're doing video stuff, content.
Okay, I'm happy to. I think it's fun. I'd like to give it a go because it does look really fun. And as a side note, speaking of, do you know what Critical Role is? Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it. Is it
D&D? It's a really famous D&D channel. So they're all voice actors who did D&D, and they got unbelievably famous because of it. But I think because Kyle Pretzlinski put a picture of him with someone who is famous, who I think is from Critical Role. But the photo was the person looking excited to know because he knew who Kyle was. And I thought I really should spend more time learning about who famous people are, because I didn't know who he was.
To be fair, though, if it turned out Kyle was famous, I'd totally believe that. He's got the charisma to be famous, surely.
Yes. Have you met him?
Oh, yeah. Oh, starstruck. I asked, you were there, Steve. I asked for a photo and I made it very weird.
Well, you kept touching him in an inappropriate way.
Oh, yeah, but that wasn't on the photo, though.
It's just normal. But he is like a bit of a celeb, isn't he? He just kind of, because he's got that aura, he's got that voice as well.
He really does. He just, you just want to touch his beard. That's not weird.
That's not. No. What? No.
Touching a stranger's beard. But it's. I think you said it a few podcasts back, Steve. Is that you sort of know him from his. It's like you feel like you know him, but he doesn't know you back. It's weird. Maybe it's a slight stalker kind of impulse. I don't know.
I think so. I think it's just being the face of a company, isn't it? I think Rob Berman probably gets the same thing.
Well, he might have, once upon a time. Unless Nottingham Trent University has that kind of situation.
He's still Crazy Bobby to me. He always will be.
Yeah, were you there for the origin of Crazy Bobby? Because Clem and I always just assumed that was a joke that got taken too far, that they couldn't let go.
I think Rob's just brilliant, and he just comes up with silly ideas and runs with it, and they let him because why wouldn't you? And it just got funnier and funnier, so he just carried on doing it. It's like he used to have Fisty Glue Man. back before I started playing Kings of War, Fisty Glue Man was a piss take, a mick take of like people customizing characters and stuff, I guess. But that was a thing. It's just the silliness of a.
I'm gonna have to Google that.
You haven't heard of Fisty Glue Man?
No, I've never heard of Fisty Glue Man.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm trying to find this photograph of Kyle now so I can look at who the person was.
Careful of which part of the internet you end up into, like with some keywords. You might want to enable
back on the dark
search.
web.
Yeah, keep safe search on, Chris, for your sanity.
I'm just going to type into the thing and cut out all the references to fisting, please. Here he is. Travis. His name was Travis. Travis from Critical Role, apparently. So he's like really famous, and he knows who Kyle is.
Will Wheaton thing, is it? Because I know Will Wheaton, who was briefly he was in Star Trek. He was like Beverly Crusher's son or something. He's super famous doing D&D stuff.
He's Travis Willingham, a voice actor, a member of the main cast of Critical Role, and the CEO of Critical Role Productions. He plays Chetney Pockopy.
I think we all agree we started making Mantic content because we assumed we would be mega stars, mega famous, and it would change our lives forever. So this is all making a lot of sense,
I once touched Car President's Gate, so that's my claim to fame. It's all good.
So there you go. Absolutely. Super. That's unrelated to his broken arm, I'm assuming.
I think he's better. He's fine.
Good. Right. So we're still, believe it or not, sorry, dear listener, we're still talking about Kings of War. So I went to Brexit land a couple of weeks ago on holiday. I went to England on holiday, Steve.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. And yes, I had a lovely family holiday, but at some point I did order some models to my parents' house in Lymington and put them together on the kitchen table because I was, just missing it, quite frankly. And I went to charming Salisbury and played 3 games of Ambush with John Guns off the Moonrakers.
I love
3
John.
games of Ambush. He was lovely, delightful man.
Good gentleman. He's so nice.
Yes. And and that's where I used to live before I moved to Germany, Salisbury. So it was lovely to be back. And if anyone finds himself in Salisbury, go to the Giggling Squid restaurant. It's fantastic. Yeah, no, trust me on this. Go to Salisbury, go to the Giggling Squid restaurant, and then go to John Gunn's house and play Ambush.
Did he try to show you Betty?
Pardon me?
You haven't heard of the Betty? His wife is a incredible seamstress. And she stitches gaming assistance aids. So a lot of you might see when you come to UK tournaments, you'll see people with these incredible bags that they hang off the edge of the table, and they've got a space for a dice tray, and they've got a space for all your books, and it's like these, and they're called Betties. It's an acronym. I can't remember what it's called, but they make them. They make them in custom fabrics for you as well. He didn't try and sell you one. He's off his game. I tell you what, he's getting
amazing.
Old.
I met his wife, and actually she saw my acrylic, sort of measury widget sticks and went, "Oh, these are very nice." And I said something along the lines of, "Yeah, you've been watching your husband play games for too long. This is, you should not notice this." But no, he's a really lovely bloke and had a lovely old time. First game, so I played my EOD, same list, have been running for a while, 750 points. And first game I played against goblins. And I was actually doing surprisingly well, but I couldn't kill his what are they called, mincer mob guys. They're the ones with the defense 6 in the front. The problem was, I think it's pretty much all he had left. The problem I had was, I think he had a goblin king or something like that, who was protecting the flank basically, and I just couldn't kill the goblin king on chariot, I think. And I think I had a good 2 turns where I really ought to have killed that and then get in the flank of the mincers, and I just couldn't do it. So the mincers were just slowly but surely killing my army while I couldn't quite. And then so it came down to literally, is there a turn 7 or not? And I can't remember exactly how it went, but whichever was the one that meant that I lost was the one that happened. So it was. I was a dice roll away from winning the game. But I mean, to be fair, he's a really lovely bloke. I don't think he was, that wasn't exactly his heavy tournament play, let's say. But it was a really, really good game. Turn 2, I think he played his Green Lady army, which I think he was planning on taking to the tournament, and he absolutely crushed me. Game 2, it was brutal. Yeah, you know, he just
it's one of those flying armies that it's very hard to get used to playing. I think the Green Lady army.
Yeah, quite possibly. Yeah, and he had water elementals that were really good with the Strider and everything. He played the terrain really, really well. I mean, he just played really, really well. And then in the third game, he played the same list again, but he basically gave me a little bit of help and said, well, actually, I've only got, because I think he only had 4 units or something like that. It was a very, very elite list. He was like, just come at me from all angles and you'll notice I won't be able to respond to everything all at the same time. And that's what I did. And I won. But, you know, I was very much using my opponent's ideas against him, which, you know, should I call that a victory? Yes, of course. Yes. So I absolutely smashed him in that third game. Honestly, guys, you were.
So it's a draw ultimately, right? Like all in all.
Well, kind of, yeah. But he won the first game on a coin flip kind of thing. But
exactly, yeah. So first one coin flip, second one he barely won, third one he smashed him.
Yeah.
So sounds like a draw, kind of like a victory as well.
Thanks,
yeah.
Clem. You're doing a lot of good self-esteem. Thanks, buddy. Yeah, but no,
Clem's the best friend ever.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Chris. I don't know why they keep telling you you're fired, Chris. You're doing great. That's what I heard. Yeah, no, absolutely. But no, he's a lovely bloke. And then there was in pool. There was an endurance tournament, which I've never heard of such a thing before. But I didn't have time to go to it. But I did take my family on a 45-minute detour to go and say hello. So we were meeting like school friends of mine in a place called Hamble, which is like the other side of Southampton to where we were. And for anyone that knows UK southern geography. So we got in the car and I was like, oh yeah, we'll just stop in and, you know, I just want to go and say hello, you know. And my wife was like, okay, but is it on the way? And I'm like, well, not so much on the way, no, but it was a good 45-minute detour. But I did have a microwave bacon sandwich in the game hall, so that made up for everything, you know. But it was good. It was a really, really nice shop, and you know, just say hello to Danny Graves. It was worth it just for that alone. First time I've met him in person, I think. So that was really cool.
He's quite the experience, isn't he, Danny Graves?
Yeah, I mean, everyone was playing Kings of War. I don't know when we turned up. I don't know what was going on there, but yeah, it was. I just wandered over because obviously he's quite distinctive, you know. So just wandered over, and he was having a Northern Alliance against Northern Alliance civil war. But it was cool. It was really, really nice just to go. And it was funny with this, like, they had the upstairs was this massive gaming hall, and there was this tiny pocket of Kings of War players, and then everyone else was playing 40k. And it was kind of like, you know, oh, look, there's lots of grey plastic. You know, maybe someone had painted like 2 of their models and everything else is like. And then you look at the Kings of War and it's like beautiful armies. Everything's painted. But, you know, as long as those people are having fun playing 40k, you know, good for them. You know, good for them. So, yeah. So I did get some gaming stuff in on my family holiday. That's pretty good going now.
Pretty impressive. You have a tolerant partner. I think that endurance tournament is crazy. It's 6 games in a day, and they're.
So is that what it is?
Yeah, it's like a reducing points level, 6 games, and it's you in a reducing time clock as well. So it's who can last the longest. So it's pretty. I think it wasn't that well attended. I think the tournaments down there, and they're pretty chaotically run. I think, but they seem lots of fun. And Danny goes to every tournament under the sun. He's incredible. I love Danny Graves. I want to be Danny Graves in my next life.
Can you live up to it though?
No.
You know, like you think you can live it, but have you got the spirit, the wild, free spirit?
I've got the hair above anything else.
Well, no, absolutely. No. Yeah, not just on your face.
You're all right.
Super. What other Trent? Have you played any Kings of War? I think you might have.
Yeah, I mean, do you want to talk about the Berlin weekend?
Yeah, we can talk about it now, Clem. What do you think?
Yeah, we could, or maybe just shortly before we switch to the weekend, what I've been doing for Kings of War. I just played, I don't know if you guys have followed this online tournament like the Explorers GT, and I played my round 1 and round 2 games. I got smashed both times. Interesting. The first one was like a mirror match against Salamanders because I took my good old Salamanders lists.
Sorry, Clem, 2,300 points?
Yeah, the standard. I don't remember what scenario we played for round 1. But basically my opponent was a super nice guy, but he said, oh yeah, I haven't played in a very long time. I don't know. I suppose I'll figure out how things work and so on. And I said, yeah, so you've seen that now withdraw is option. It's like, withdraw? Where was withdraw? And it's like, okay, that's going to be an interesting game. And actually, it turns out, I think Trent, you know him, right? It's a very good player, like much better than I am. And he just crushed me.
This was Brian, right? Brian
right, yeah.
With his Salamanders.
Yeah. So
yeah, he's an excellent player. I knew him from Colorado.
Yeah, so it was actually quite funny, like started the game like, oh yeah, I haven't played in forever. I don't really know how this game works. I was like, yeah, right. Like, if you don't know how it works, like, I don't know what I'm doing.
And then he starts saying, Clem, oh, why don't we make this interesting? Maybe put $500 on the game, just friendly. Oh yeah, that sounds good.
He hustled you.
Something like that. But anyway, no, he just played it better. And the second game against EOD is just like a same thing. I don't know where it went wrong exactly. Like the list is not what I want to see with my Salamanders to begin with. But
can you elaborate on that? Sorry, Clem.
Well, like EODs, they are relatively hard to kill, and they can do
not the way
shooting.
I play them, they're not. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, he had like 2 hordes of the Enslaved Guardians shooters, and they're like they basically popped 1 unit a turn. So for my list that isn't really fast, it's relatively bad, and dice were just insane that game. Like I think we had 12 double ones in the game. Like on both sides, it was just stupid dice. But he still won fair and square, So yeah, that's about it. My other Kings of War stuff is I was painting my 10mm Varangals in preparation for the gaming day in Berlin. So now we can transition to the weekend.
Sorry, Clem, just to elaborate on something I forgot to mention. Can we just discuss how hilarious your bad dice were playing Dungeon Saga? So Clem is the Overlord. And he was rolling to basically every time he was getting attacked, it seemed he was rolling two ones, like double ones, which is the worst possible outcome for him.
Yeah, like my skeletons trying to defend themselves, they have 2 dice, and I need to beat your result, right, to negate your attack.
I think we figured out equaling it is also fine for you,
right?
But anyway, he basically roll anything but double ones, and you'll probably be okay. And it was comical how many times you rolled double ones.
I rolled.
It was extraordinary.
Yeah, like those dice should go in the fire, But like those white dice from the Dungeon Saga set, I think I rolled maybe not 10 times, but close to this, the number ones. But anyway,
yeah, it was a lot of double ones.
I think maybe it's part of the plot, like make the dungeon master lose.
And at least it didn't happen in the Kings of War tournament.
Right. No, that would have been bad. Anyway, so gaming day. Where do we start? Chris, do you want to start with it?
Yeah. So Trent and I, as discussed earlier in the pod, so we travelled up on the train to see Clem and got the train back together, which was actually lovely, Trent, by the way, if I didn't mention that. That was a delight. But it's I should know how long it takes, and I forget every time. It's something like 5 hours or something like that on the train, but it's quite nice, particularly if you're in first class. It's quite pleasant. It's nice. I watched The Last of Us on the way up, which was riveting. And we went to Funtainment, which is a big recently moved game shop in Berlin. So it's massive, right, Clem? Right in the centre of town, loads of tables to hire. In terms of Mantic, they had 1 second edition Deadzone starter box, which I did briefly consider buying just because, but I managed to talk myself out of it. But it's a lovely space, and Clem had basically invited, there is a Kings of War community in Berlin, so Clem had, ask people on the Discord, but they also have, a wider gaming groups. There's a lot of people on there who play other game systems. So you managed to attract quite a lot of new players for the first time. Just come have a demo, come and have a look. Trent turned up just in time. So yeah, about 11 o'clock for our first game. And Trent and I ended up playing with two pretty much brand new players, I think.
Yeah, they just played a couple of games each, I think. Maybe. Not even sure.
I think it was exactly one game each.
Yeah, and so we played a doubles game. I was paired up with a lovely chap called Bjorn. I mean, they were two really nice guys, but me and Bjorn were just laughing our heads off the whole time, whether it was good things happening or bad things happening. We had a really, really good time. So shout out to Bjorn if you're listening, buddy. But yeah, I mean, it was hard work. It was a doubles game explaining to new people, but honestly, I think we were probably on this game for like 4 hours.
Yeah, no, it was a long time. We were ready to eat after we were done.
Right.
It was fun, like you said. It really was a blast.
Yeah, I must admit, I absolutely loved it. And what I really, really liked actually was that Trent was saying to his teammate Tim, he was saying, "Hey Tim, what do you think we should do?" I know that sounds like a silly point to make, but I absolutely loved that. I thought, Trent did such a good job of just being a great fun guy to play with, because that's 50% of it, right? You can have the best game system in the world, but, if the people showing you the game are, being jerks, then it's, you're not coming back, right?
Exactly.
So the fact Trent was just, he was the guy you want to play with, right? When you he was fantastic. And, but no, I thought it was a great game, to be quite honest with you, and it was really, really interesting. But I feel like Trent, you're learning a lot. I mean, you're obviously playing better players than me, but like there was a flank where I had my chariots, had two troops of chariots, and my revenant cavalry, and Trent had his 3 troops of ghouls, and basically what I needed to do was shoot off the ghouls, or at least one of the ghouls, so that I could then charge another one and get through, basically break through. But there was a forest in the middle of that flank, and Trent just played really, really smartly with his angles. I think I was a bit unlucky with it, although, I was a bit unlucky.
You were, you charged a troop of ghouls off of a hill and didn't get a single hit. I mean, granted, it was only 8 attacks, but still.
Yeah, I didn't roll a single 4. But I mean, I was hoping to just get one, because the ghouls have got such low nerve. I was hoping to just get one lucky shot with the shooting, only on 4 dice. But I think I was shooting at them for 3 or maybe even 4 turns. I thought I'd pop one, and I never managed it. But it was partly just down to your really, really good play. So you kind of locked down that flank all turn. What was really, I mean, you won the center, which I was expecting you to, because I couldn't get my chariots round to help. But what was really interesting, actually, was that you had your revenant cavalry regiments and troops on the opposite flank to me and my Empire of Dust, and you were up against the new player Sylvan Kin, and I was sure you were going to win that flank. And
I was sure too.
You had the speed, you had all the advantages, but you got ground down by some trees. There were a couple of troops of the what are the really good ones called? The shooty blade stalkers. Yeah, blade stalkers. But it was I mean, you played really, really well, Trent, so you very much deserved the win. It was invade, and we played most of the game in our half of the board, so it's making it tricky for us to kind of break out. But I thought you played great, and you were super, super fun to play with. And then we had some very surprisingly cheap and tasty Thai food, I'm going to say, which was by that time we were ready for it, right?
It really hit the spot after that. No, it was a close game. And honestly, I think if there had been a turn 7, it would have looked a lot different. But it was really tight game. It was fun. I think the 2 new players, we were laughing and rolling some dice, so we were having a good time. But I want to say, I was trying to remember. I think so. With us 3, was there 9 of us total there? It was like 8 or 9, something like that. It was a pretty good turnout.
I guess that's something like this, yes, because they were. Well, some people left earlier, right? Because at some point
yeah.
there were 2 tables of people playing 10 mil Kings of War, so that's 4 more people, and then 2 more people joined later to play like basically Ambush, the first game ever. Yeah, so that's about 10 people total.
Yeah, so we got back
really
from lunch.
Good turnout.
To be fair, after our 4-hour epic game, which was a ton of fun, I think we both were pretty exhausted, right, Trent? So we got back from lunch, and then as Clem mentioned, there were 2 people playing pretty much their first ever game. Maybe it was their second game. But I just went and had a look at them, and I was like, "Oh, bless you guys. Okay, I'll just sit here and give you a little hand." But they were delightful, so that was good. So I did another kind of just helping those guys out. And that was my experience, to be honest with you. So
yeah, I think after we got back from eating, we were sitting across from each other at the table, and we're like, well, we got about an hour left. We could get a game of Ambush in, and we were both just like, nah. We're good.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of said, yeah, let's do it, I'd have been like, okay, come on. But it was, but to be honest, I mean, last time we all met up, we played a ton, right?
Yes.
And that's great. But this time, I still had a really great time with my friends. So, Yeah,
I mean, it's a different story as well when going to the store. In a way, time is a bit more limited because you need to get there with your stuff set up and then figure out who plays what with who. And then there's a closing time of the shop, and so you need to get back home. So you end up not playing that much, but you get a lot more visibility, and like some people who just go to the store will stop by and have a quick chat, like, "Oh, what are you doing? That looks pretty interesting." And so every time you do that, like you hire at least 1 or 2 more new players. So yeah, I think it's still a really good time, and it's a different experience. But I like doing both, to be honest. I think next time I would try to do it over 3 days, not just 2 days or like literally 1 day and a half. And then maybe, take some time to arrive like Thursday night or Friday early in the day, and then you could go to the shop. And then on Saturday you can play a lot more if you want to.
Almost like a mini convention. Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. Like figure out something where you could do a little bit of all of it. But yeah, no, it's still a super, super good time playing games with good people. And that makes a good weekend, ultimately.
Yeah. And Steve, if at any point you fancy flying over and joining us, you'd be more than welcome.
I'm up for it. It sounds like the real treasure was the friendship you found along the way, guys.
I can't tell whether you were listening or not, but yes, that is very true.
Of course I was listening.
Also,
was that just a random thing you say when you weren't paying attention?
No, because you wanted to. Should we play more games? No, let's just hang out and enjoy each other's company.
It was like that, yeah. It was very much
hence
like
the real treasure was the friendship you found along the way.
Yeah, it was. No, it was appropriate. I was just wondering whether it was just luckily appropriate or.
In my game, there's no such thing as luck. No, it sounds amazing. I think it's what you're doing is some proper community building. It's whether those guys then stick and whether you manage to get them to invest in building armies and stuff like that. I think that's the key, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, I mean, one of the guys who played in the doubles game with us, so Bjorn, hey Bjorn, he had his. It was 3D printed, but he had his Sylvan army.
Yeah.
He had a Sylvan Kin. It was painted nicely with an airbrush, looked good.
Yep.
So yeah, no, I think there's
So I'm interested. When you guys play, are you playing in German or in English?
It's mostly in English. It's mostly in English. Interestingly, there's a guy in the community who I've seen a few times there called Pete, who seems to have forgotten all his English. So Pete tends to be the one speaking the most German. But yeah, it's
And his name is Pete? Pete
yeah, exactly. No. Well, he's from England originally, but he's he's gone native.
I mean, the story here is so the gaming club is called the International Tabletop Gaming Club Berlin, And so the main language is English because we have people coming from all over. And some recently arrived in Berlin, and some longer in the town, like Pete. They try to integrate better with the local population, or also, their own German partner, and speak more German. But a lot of the members actually don't speak German so well. Yeah.
So this is a sidetrack, but irrelevant. So we were, so my wife was, as I might mention, she's born in China. So we went back to visit her family because China's open again. And her dad took us, so we went to this toy market to buy my son some toys. And it was the most incredible toy place, literally, because they make the toys there. And people have this thing about how stuff made in China is bad quality. They're just sending us the bad quality stuff. The stuff in China is incredible. There's like every toy under this, all of them, all the toys. Every toy you could possibly imagine was there. And he took me to a wargaming store there. So I was interested in seeing what it was. And so we went in, and I remember I'd been there before. And so the only wargaming there is in China really is kind of it's not even really wargaming. There is a little bit of a 40k scene, but there's people, the modelers there are really interested in stuff like tanks and planes. They're like Airfix models, right? So the store had a very small rack of Games Workshop products, so like some AOS models, some 40k models.
Sorry, Steve, can I ask, were you in one of the big cities?
Yeah. So it's Guangzhou, which is our third biggest city. And when I say massive, it's like 3 times the size of London. It's like infeasibly large. And so and then they had like shelves and shelves of World War II style models, and then so many paints. I've never seen so many different types of paints in all my life. Like all the paints you saw Vallejo, they had some Vallejo boxes, and then they had a few Games Workshop paints, and then rack after rack after rack of dropper bottles and different styles of paints. Like enamel paints, acrylic paints, washes, glazes, kind of all the kind of like weathering products. So I took a photo, actually. I'll send it to you because it was really interesting to see so many, such a huge variety of them. But that was really the main thing. And there was really that I wanted to buy because I'm not really a World War II modeler and it's not really my thing. But it was really interesting to see the difference between the stuff. It was really cool. There was no like super high detail, massive models. And it was like a whole another set of stores, which is all like Gundam models and like all the Japanese models and like robot Gundam Samurai Optimus Prime models, like 18 inches tall. All that kind of cool, amazing stuff that you wouldn't find in the UK. But wargaming is not a thing. It's not a thing there. Anyway, small sidetrack in terms of different countries. But
that's your next mission, to bring the word of our Lord and Savior, Kings of War.
I think my uncle used to work for the BBC, and I think he pretty much brought darts to Shanghai, as I understand it, because he loved darts.
Yes, the way that he tells it.
Yeah.
Listen, son, when I was in China, they didn't know what darts was, but now they do because of me. They call me the Dart Lord.
Yeah, but no, I think he turned up with like 3 dartboards and a load of darts and went to a, whatever pub or whatever, and can I put this up and people play? And off the back of him, they were literally teams, darts teams. Yeah, apparently I actually believe him, to be fair.
Yeah, I mean, if you're interested, so the guy that runs Paint All the Minis podcast, have you heard of that?
I've heard of it. Yeah, I've heard of it.
Paint All the Minis, it's a really big podcast about painting minis. The guy that runs it lives in Shenzhen, China. He's an English teacher there. And he did an episode on wargaming in China because he struggles to find opponents. There's only people that play 40k, so he plays with a couple of expats. But there's a really interesting episode that he did with a wargames distributor in China. But let me see if I can.
That sounds so interesting because presumably an awful lot of the models are made in China,
right? Well, plastic production was originally there, wasn't it?
But I suppose, politically, probably World War II is probably quite safe. That's probably quite safe politically in China. Do you know what I mean? I don't know whether that's a thing. I don't know. I have absolutely no idea.
I think, no one particularly. Censorship is a thing, but I think in terms of like war is really popular in terms of, like it is in America. People love aircraft carriers and fighter jets and all that kind of stuff. And it's really actually, it's all on the news all the time. So I think that kind of stuff is massive. So yeah, it's not politically sensitive in any way. I would say that's that stuff specifically.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'd
From my
actually,
experience.
if you could dig that link out, maybe Steve, to the war game in China, I'd be very interested to watch that.
I'll see if I can find it. It's a really interesting podcast, that one.
Brilliant. Good. Cool. Do we have anything? Yeah, no, I think we're doing pretty well. Should we move on to our Pannithor for this month?
When are we going to talk about Trent and Adepticon and the fact that he smashed and bought medals?
That's
Keep the best for the end.
Yeah, we've got it.
Was that the end?
Notes, Steve, we've got it in the notes. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I haven't read the notes because I'm incompetent.
That's fine, buddy. That's fine. I mean, if I was going to, shoot people down for simply being incompetent, I mean, where would that leave me? I mean,
well, there wouldn't be many people around you right now, I guess. Maybe Trent.
Yeah, Trent's so nice. He'd be like, it's okay, Chris. Yeah, and actually doing this podcast, I've noticed I have like a Muttley laugh. I didn't even know I had that. Like the I can't even do an impression of myself, but I didn't know I did that. And then listening back to the podcast, geez. Okay, good. Okay, so Pannithor. So I read the Dungeon Saga lore from the original game, which was Clem's idea, and then he was thrilled when I agreed to it because it's another month where he doesn't have to read anything. So what would everyone like to know about the Dungeon Saga lore?
Everything.
Okay, I was worried you'd say that. So
No, not everything, sorry. Just the interesting bits.
So, next section. Just kidding.
Everything about Daenor. Daenor the wizard. He's brilliant. Tell me all about him.
Oh, he's just. So, okay, right. Let's hang on. Let's step back. So,
see, Daenor was the best character in version 2 Kings of War because he was rubbish. I think he was an elf wizard or a human wizard, but he had like every single spell with 1 dice, and he could cast, as long as he was successful, he could cast them all in succession. So he like Bane Chant 1, Fireball 1, Lightning 1, this and that 1, and he could cast them all as long as he got successes. He could carry on casting them,
so
and no one ever took him because obviously that's garbage.
He was like a rubbish Reforged Shrine then, by the sound of it. A little bit like it. Yeah, good. Yeah, he's rubbish. Good. So. Okay, so there is a corrupted and sort of disgraced wizard called Mortabris. I'm fairly certain I'm getting that right. And he was a Basilian, but he was sort of cast out. So he's now spent a really long time trying to piece together this legend from, I'm going to say Vallejo, but that's not quite right. It's like an elfy word. But anyway, so he's trying to... Valandor. Thank you, buddy. Valandor. That is actually correct, Steve. Thank you. So he's going around being creepy, and he's breaking into ancient crypts because he's looking to rekindle this power that was, the good power that won the war with Winter, I think it was. So he's going around into old crypts being really creepy, So there is a really old dwarven city, which is where all this was going on, years and years ago. What am I even talking about? I'm just using words uselessly. So there's an old crypt, stuff's down there. Mortabris thinks the thing I'm after is down in that crypt, right? But the destroyed town is in a very sensitive geographical position between the dwarves, the elves, and the Basileans. So one of them suggests they take an army and go and wipe out Mortabris. And the others are like, well, hang on a second. Are you just using this as an excuse to come and attack us unexpectedly? So they agree to send, a bit like, at the beginning of the Lord of the Rings, where they decide to send out the fellowship, oh, you have my axe. It's a bit like that, where they're like, okay, well, elfie lady, she can go, barbarian, although the barbarian is just sort of there. He doesn't, at no point does he seem interested in any of this. So I have massive respect for him. He's bored during the meeting, so he's like yawning and like he's awesome. He's really cool. He doesn't respect anyone. I don't even know why he was in the room, to be quite honest with you. There's Rawdin the dwarf, obviously, So that's why there's the mix of everyone sends one bloke basically plus the barbarian who just so happened to be in the room at the time, and no one was going to tell him no.
So they're trying to catch up with. Is he a necromancer or something?
Yeah,
the bad guy?
Yeah, Mortibrus. He's now a necromancer. The elf lady is specifically looking. Well, they want to stop him, but they also have their own sort of like little agenda as well. So the dwarves need someone there to stop the humans and the elves defiling their sacred crypt. The Basileans obviously want to murder the their sort of lost son Mortibrus, and the elf. Interestingly, Clem. And there's mild spoilers here, dear listener. The elf lady ranger who's there, she's there to regain some of the lost treasures of her people, which they know were left there. The dwarves had them. So if you remember, spoiler alert, dear listener, on in the chest there was the elf. I think it was like spider armor or whatever it was. Spider
silk armor.
Spider silk armor. Thanks,
yeah.
buddy. Yeah, of course. Oh, of course, it was yours, wasn't it? So it was. That's actually mentioned in the story, so I thought that was actually kind of cool. There's
Mortibrus was another cool character from the second edition that doesn't exist anymore, who unlocked a really broken build for undead because he had an aura of stealthy. Continue. Sorry.
No worries. There's more information on Goluk, the Elf King, and Basilian Protector. I've got to be honest, I didn't actually read all that, but there is. Shall I read a bit about Mortibrus? Get a bit more flavour for Mortibrus. Does that make sense?
Why not?
Yeah. So dust stirred around him as the breeze from the outside touched the interior of the hold for the first time in centuries. The bones of the long dead littered the hallway, along with the detritus of ages. The incessant I don't even know that word. Susurration of the voices in his head found a new layer as the restless spirits of the place added their own voices to the chorus. Above it all was a more strident note, which he recognized as elvish in tone. So the legend was true. El Shara wandered these halls. A gesture of his hand sent the mindless revenants he'd culled from the Basilean patrol wandering back into the wilderness to keep prying eyes away. Another sent the troll thudding off ahead of him. No sense in risking exposing himself just yet until he could gauge the threat posed by the elven spirit and whatever protectors she had placed over the hold before her death. It was so close he could almost smell it. Somewhere beneath these ruined hallways and chambers was the answer to all of his worldly desires. The tome represented unlimited power to any who possessed it, the accumulated wisdom of the greatest magical user ever to walk among mortals, the father of magic and a legendary figure among every civilized race. Mortibrus would unlock every last secret, and with them he would restore the natural order of the world and silence the voices in his head once and for all. He smiled to himself as he set off after the troll. Not long now. Yeah, so he's basically a nut job who heals his dead people talking to him, and he's got this plan to basically end all existence so that the voices don't chatter to him any longer. It's sort of like tinnitus, but, undead.
With mushrooms or something, like he really gets pretty high.
Quite possibly.
Like it's crypt mushroom stew that drives you crazy or something.
I mean, haven't we all just murdered all of our friends to silence the voices in our heads? It happens all the time. I know that's why Trent ended up in Germany, right? He had to leave the US.
Oof. And I can tell you about Goluk is he uses the word bloody a lot, and that's all I want to say about Goluk. The king of the dwarves. Yeah, good.
So, wait, you said the crypt itself is like an ancient dwarf city or something?
Correct. Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes. And it's been long dormant, but it's sort of legendary, and, they want it left as it is. Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Good.
And I think so. Just to bridge that with the Dungeon Saga Origins, I think they said Origins is before this story.
Yeah.
Right. Did you hear a bit more about like what the plot is or what happens for Origins or what's the story?
No, I mean, to be honest, as far as I'm concerned, I can't imagine a single player being upset if they retcon the original Dungeon Saga plot. I can't imagine a situation where anyone goes, no, that's not the jerky Danilon that I know. But that's what they've decided to do. I mean, it does seem like at the beginning of Dungeon Saga, they kind of don't really know each other, and they don't really trust each other yet. So it is a bit of a weird decision, but it doesn't really matter, to be quite honest.
Because it's the same 4 heroes in Origins, like the core set, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it seems a bit weird because right at the beginning, if you remember, Clem, when we read the scenario for the first scenario, it makes it very clear they don't really know or trust each other yet. So if they've already had an adventure, it kind of doesn't quite make sense. But it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's all right.
But I think it's obviously I've explained that beautifully and flawlessly and haven't made any enormous mistakes, but as always, but I think it's actually pretty good fluff for what it is.
It served the purpose, I suppose. Do we know? I mean, Mark would know if there's been any books about it, but I have no idea. I know there are 3 or 4 additional quests, right? Mm-hmm. Something like this, but I think they have relatively different stories in them. So
but next time we have a game day here or a gaming weekend here, I'd very much like us to do as I said earlier, Deadzone and Firefight at the shop, and then when it's just us, a nice little quest number 2 on Dungeon Saga. I'm sure even if we read the rules and are a bit up to speed, I'm sure in an evening you can play more than one adventure, because we started relatively late, right? Like we had dinner and we were chatting. We started at 10 p.m, buddy.
And then we had no idea about what we were doing with the rules and everything. And it took us 2 hours, I think, to go through it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like an hour and a half, 2 hours maybe. So I think, if you're a bit more on top of your game, you can most likely go through a few more adventures in an evening. But I'm looking forward to it.
If we could just
I think lore-wise, so just to be the Mark, I can talk like Mark if you like. I can't actually do his accent, but lore-wise, I would imagine they're going to kind of restart from Dungeon Saga Origins, simply because when Dungeon Saga first came out, they weren't very coherent in their lore. There's no books associated with it. There was at that time they released a book, but it's been since kind of retconned out. I've actually got a copy. It's amazing, but it was cool. It was called. I'll look it up. But I think all of the new lore and all the new book kind of starts from a fresh beginning after Dungeon Saga, the original. So I would imagine that the lore you're going through, while interesting, isn't perhaps as rock solid as the stuff they're going to come out with Origins. That's my impression.
I mean, to be quite honest, I prefer the idea of them just redoing it with Mantic now, not Mantic 2015 or whatever. But but I mean, don't get me wrong. I think we all wanted to like it, but actually, I've been surprised how much we enjoyed it and how there are slightly janky things in there, but I think it's a solid game. We had a great time, right?
I mean, my wife also I think had a good time playing it. Like she said, I didn't know you had this game, like why don't we play it more often? It's like, well,
and that says a lot, to be
shelf.
fair. That says a lot that Sarah, who she has painted one mini, that's to her, that's a thing she did once, but
she did.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, super. So there we go. I think that'll do it for Pannithor. Yeah.
Okay, pass. It's you did okay.
I did. Yeah, it's a 6 out of 10. There was a bit more reading I didn't do, and I didn't use the word Dolgarth once, or Dolgar or something. I don't know.
You did okay, buddy. You did okay.
Yeah,
I think you sold the universe and the game and everything. It's good.
Thanks,
buddy. Good job.
Thanks, buddy. Super. Right, should we go on to some listener questions? I think typically we have the topic of the month first, but let's stick with the notes.
Yeah. Whichever. I mean, I think there's a Steve Hildrew from the copy paste that you've done that asks a few questions. So yeah, I don't know. Why don't we ask Steve what he thinks? Like,
to be fair, Chris didn't ask me to join the podcast until yesterday, so I thought I was fired again, and so I thought I'd just ask you some questions. And then he was like, "You want to come on?" And I was like, "Oh, well,
why don't you answer your own questions?"
Yeah, Steve. Why should Kingdoms of Men not be in the game?
I love Kingdoms of Men. It's my next army always.
Why aren't they in Firefight?
I thought they are. Aren't they? Isn't that all of Firefight? I don't really understand Firefight.
It's all catapults all the time. Yeah, no, that's fine. So, Steve, what do you think of lists like the Scorchwind list that dominated Lone Wolf?
Well, I asked you guys because... So, do you know the list?
No.
No, not at all. And nor does our dear listener. 20% of our listeners listen this far. Yeah.
So, it's basically 2 hordes of centaurs, Bray Striders, and then everything else is a horde of Scorchwings, pretty much.
Yeah, that sounds horrific.
And it's like 120 shots, and they all hit on 3s, and they all speed 10. And the chap that came up with it, well, he didn't even paint his own army. He commissioned someone else to paint his army for him. And apparently, by all accounts, he's an exceptional player, or a good player. And he turned up and he crushed everyone. And it just looked... What I think about it is I think he's very clever for coming up with it. I think it looks absolutely zero fun to play against.
Yeah.
And I kind of cordially dislike... I mean, I'll get in trouble for saying it because, it's within the rules of the game. I've played armies that's all shock troops, right? So I've done that. My last list was at 7 regiments of shock troops, so I get it. I get the idea of taking a unit you like and just putting on loads of them on the table. I don't know how I feel about it. Like, I hate it. And I would hate to play against it. But you kind of caught in admiration of the person that came up with it, and you think, well, good for you. What do you guys think?
Well, it's one of those things, to be quite honest with you, that someone might come up with on paper, but it never actually gets all the way to being an army and making it to the table and being in a tournament. I mean, it doesn't sound like it's any fun to play against, which I think is the, it sounds like a 40k army, to be quite honest with you.
I think it sounds like, but it's probably fun to play against if you're a really high level player and you enjoy the challenge of something really extraordinary, right? It's like people that take... So I played against... There's a guy in the UK called Andy Hawley, who's an awesome guy, who has an all-zombie army. And he's got a couple of necromancers, 2 hordes of zombie trolls, and everything else is a horde of zombies. They've all got the aura, right? And to play against it, it was absolutely overwhelming. And he crushed me, but he's been beaten with it. And it was a real... And as it happens, Andy's a great guy. He's a super, super guy, really nice man. And I'm sure the guy that did the Scorchwings is a super nice guy as well. I didn't find playing against Andy's zombies, depressing or overwhelming or anything like that. I just thought it was really fun. It was like hordes and hordes of zombies.
It was an interesting challenge for you rather than...
Right. So is playing against 8 hordes of Scorchwings an interesting challenge? I think it might be if it's beatable. I'm just not sure it's beatable in the current meta. And, this was played at Lone Wolf, which by all accounts, Trent's played there. One of the most competitive tournaments in the world.
Yes, absolutely. And, also just to add on to that, it's kind of interesting he took this list because Lone Wolf is known for its crazy scenarios. Like, they just have Mark Coxatio does an excellent job of making, like, new and unique scenarios, but they're really unpredictable, right? There's a lot of progressive scoring and everything like that. So it is interesting. And I haven't seen the list, but did you say it's like 2 hordes of Centaur Bray Striders, and then the rest of it's just hordes of Scorchwings?
Pretty much, yeah. I'll see if I can find it too, exactly what's in it.
Yeah, I figure it'll be on the internet at some point, probably on Facebook shared. But yeah, that doesn't sound very fun to play against, I will admit. But I mean, it worked out for him. So, but yeah, I mean, that's definitely a high caliber of player that goes to Lone Wolf every year. So that's a pretty impressive. This list won.
Like his last game is against Dustin Howard. Dustin Howard, is it? Normally plays EOD. Who's an excellent player, and he was playing Ratkin, a really strong shooty Ratkin list, and it was live streamed actually on YouTube, and he crushed him. It was really like, oh wow, that's quite the spectacle. It just looked overwhelming, and I just kind of, I don't know, I just feel a bit sad about it. I don't know how I feel about it, and it'll get, it's almost certainly will get nerfed, and
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, for me, that's a good example of why I'm not a big fan of tournaments, because that's kind of pushing the tournaments to the extreme. I mean, it makes sense from a tournament perspective, right? Like you find a unit that is doing a better job than average at a given task for the amount of points that it costs, and you build a list around it. I mean, you could argue that's one way to approach tournaments, but then it just makes for very skewed lists or very potentially boring games. I don't know. Like, I think there's, unless you're really a good player, there's not much you can do against a list like this. And it looks like even if you're a good player, it's really surprising. All I hope is that like somehow it's patched in the rules, but it doesn't push the game in this type of direction. I don't know. Like that.
And you don't want to overly nerf Scorchwings, so then you never see them. It's a very tricky balance, isn't it?
I think there's a part of maybe around the army building rules. There's something to be done, right? Because some units you're happy to have just one or two, maybe. But then if you put 5 or 8 on the table, then it's a completely different story. So maybe there's just something to do here. I don't know.
What do you think, Trent?
I mean, a lot of the times previously, the tournaments that I played in have kind of had, and see, I don't know how strictly it's been enforced really, but they have where you can't take more than 3 of a certain unit. So it's kind of like, the 3 War Machine rule, but for every unit. So I don't know. Obviously, Lone Wolf didn't. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's not the spirit of the game, right? To take 8 hordes of Scorchwings.
Yeah.
That being said, I hope they don't nerf Scorchwings, because I love my Scorchwings and Forces of Nature.
And they're awesome models. Yeah, we don't want them to...
They're amazing models.
Right. Cool. Right, Trent, I think you've only got about 10 minutes left before you've got to shoot. So should we just move things around briefly and let you talk about topic of the month, Adepticon?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of crazy because I was just looking at the date. It was about a month ago that I was at Adepticon, which is insane. I mean, it's almost May right now. But I can give you guys the rundown. For everybody that doesn't know, I'm Trent. I live in Germany right now, but as you can tell by me speaking, I'm an American. So I decided to fly back for Adepticon this past year. Well, Adepticon 2023, right, a month ago. So I could kind of meet up with everybody. Like I met up with Rob, and I met a lot of people that I have talked to because of Countercharge, but I've never actually met in person. And then I met some of my friends that I haven't seen in like a year. So it's a really cool atmosphere. It's a really great atmosphere. Like Mantic was there. Ronnie was there, so I didn't get to meet him, but everybody else was. Like I met Kyle and a ton of Pathfinders. Like it was just a great group of people. So I've kind of run through the events. Like I didn't do all the Mantic events, but basically there wasn't anything on Wednesday because that was and then on Thursday, oh man, see now I'm trying to remember. It's been so long. So basically Armada and Firefight were on the same day on oh yeah, okay, sorry, I got it. Just edit that out, no big deal. So Thursday was the team tournament. I just completely forgot about the team tournament. Friday was Armada and Firefight all in one day. And then Saturday and Sunday were the big, Adepticlass 2,300 point Kings tournament. So I played in the team tournament and then the big 2,300 point tournament. I didn't play Armada or Firefight because I had a few classes that I wanted to take, a few hobby classes, which were really, really cool. But yeah, for the team tournament, it was pretty interesting. Rob actually hooked me up with my partner, Krista Grow. And I never met her before. We were just kind of like talking back and forth on Facebook, shooting back ideas for each other. but I knew like with me flying, I could only fit my 2,300 point army. So whatever I had, like whatever we were going to use, was going to have to be a subsect of that, because what it was each person brought 1,000 points. It was a full army, not like an ambush style army, so the unlocks work normally, and then you combine them together with the normal ally rules. We didn't know it at the time, so I brought my undead, and Chris brought his EOD. We didn't know it at the time, but the way the scenario worked was that as the rounds progressed, the armies like trusted each other more, right? So for the first game, it was regular ally rules, like no inspiring between armies, no spell casting between armies, no auras between armies, anything like that. The second round was okay, like, oh, they can trust each other a little bit more, so now you can cast spells on each other. And then the final round, it was like it was one whole army. Well, it was really cool because, you know, we were both playing undead, we were both playing shambling, and he had, this is insane that he fit this in 1,000 points. So he brought Shobik, the Monolith, and the Soul Snare. So we had 2 legions of zombies, like with the drain life from the Soul Snare, and then the Monolith just surging everybody around. It was really synergized really, really well. Chris was an amazing player. He was a great opponent, very technical, clean player. Like I learned a lot from him, and I don't know how, dude, but we actually ended up winning. Well, I do know how. It was Chris, because Chris in the 2,300 point game was on the top table for round 5, and I think he ended up finishing like top 5 overall. So he was an excellent player. But that was a good way to start my first ever Adepticon ride. It's probably the only hobby medal I'll ever have in the collection, but that's my claim to fame.
Amazing, Trent, but no one can ever take it away from you. You know,
yeah,
from now on.
Exactly.
So you got one of those cool, big, kind of heavy Adepticon medals?
Yeah, dude. It's the actual, you know, it's got the skull and everything on it. It's really cool.
Amazing.
I mean, that's where all the you know, the $100 for the ticket all goes to the medals for the winners.
So I just connected the dots. You remember when I mentioned I played against EOD in the Explorers GT? Guess who I played against?
Dude, you played Chris?
I did.
You played Brian and Chris. Yeah, Chris is an excellent player, man.
Yeah. Oh, it did not go so well for me. Like his dice weren't so hot. Didn't matter. You know.
Yeah.
That explains a lot. Okay.
Yeah. And it was a really interesting list he played in the 2,300 point, because it only had like 17 unit strength, but you know,
it's
made
a pretty
it work.
low unit strength list. I'm sure, because when I asked him also, you play EOD also with actual miniatures? He said, oh yeah, that's the only army that can actually field on the table. And I play them. You know, it's like, okay, let's see.
Man, what a small world. That's wild. That is really wild.
So Trent, tell us what's your advice for Adepticon goers? Because I think next year, Chris, maybe the year after, Chris wants to go. So what should we have in mind?
Sign up early, so get your ticket as soon as you can. I think it normally opens, was it like January sometime this year? And just bring a lot of energy drinks. It's gonna be rough. You know, it's gonna be one of those vacations where it's like, oh man, I had such a good time. But then afterwards, when you go back to work, you're like, oh, I'm ready to go back to work, so I'm gonna take a break. You know, you gotta like mentally prepare yourself. And honestly, the biggest thing though is don't overextend yourself. Like don't sign up for all the classes and all the events, especially the first time, because I wish I had more time on the vendor floor, and I wish I had more time to go around. I was lucky, and I got to see armies on parade. I think I might have showed you guys the picture of the one with like the stained glass church with a Titan in the middle. Like, dude, there's some crazy shit out there. Like, I don't know how people do stuff like that. And I love going to tournaments because, and I know Steve said it earlier, like Americans, we do like our display boards, right? Like most of the time, our Kings of War Army is going to have a display board. So I love going to tournaments because it gets your hobby energy up, and you see all the work that these amazing people do, amazing talented people do. But it's weird because it's like motivation and demotivation, because you see somebody else's work and then you look at your army and you're like, oh, dude, what the fuck am I doing? And then, sorry, I'll put that timestamp in there. And then, but then at the same time, you're like, okay, now I got to get better, right? I need to step it up for my next project or something like that. And then on Friday it was Armada and Firefight. So Armada was in the morning, Firefight was in the afternoon to late evening, and it ran really smoothly. Dude, Armada had an amazing turnout. I want to say they ended with 20, 24, 26 players for the actual tournament, but I'm talking. So they played 3 games of Armada, right? And 3 games in a row of anything, it's going to be exhausting. They finished the tournament, and I was sitting there. I think I was at the podcast table for Countercharge, and I look over, and there's like 4 people that were just playing in the tournament. They were playing a 4-way game of Armada. So I'm like, that's how you know that it's a good game, right? And then
that's totally true. Yeah.
Mantic had really great deals the whole time, and then for Armada specifically, I think the Trident Realms fleet was the first time they dropped it there. They sold out of that like the first day. It was insanely fast. And then I'm trying to remember, I think Mantic night it wasn't Friday night, it was Saturday night. So Saturday and Sunday was the normal big, 5 games, so 3 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, 2,300 points of Kings of War. And I just want to say, like, all of my opponents were just phenomenal. Like, I had really great games. I went 2 and 3, right? My teams, my doubles teammate went 4 and 1, so I think we know what the distribution of help there was. But it was just so much fun, and I met a lot of people I'd never met before, which I always love doing when I go to tournaments, because sometimes you only see people at tournaments. I mean, there was people. I was with my buddy Tyler Schultz from Colorado, and he saw somebody that he hadn't seen since the last Adepticon, like pre-COVID, that he'd been for. So it's cool how you make those connections. But at Mantic night, they actually had a really cool setup. They showed us some of the renders of like the leapers, and that they passed around one of the hard plastic sprues for the I think it was for the butchers. So it was really cool to get to see that. And then they had like Blood Bowl going. I played so it was Dungeon Saga, but it was like the bar crawl one. I can't remember I think it might be an unofficial one, but it was hilarious, right? So that's why I kind of sort of knew how the mechanics worked. And then finished up Sunday, right? And that was it. It was a long flight. It was a very, very long flight. But all of my models made it. I only had like one thing that I had to super glue back for a 5,000-mile flight there and back. But it was really worth it. It really was. But yeah, big advice for first time Adepticon goers: plan early, get your ticket early, get your hotel early, and don't overcommit yourself, because I could have spent an entire day on the vendor floor. There was so much stuff. Like, I got a new airbrush, I got a bunch of models, and it was insane. It was a really good time.
You're also saying bring a credit card.
Oh yeah. Bring a credit card.
So, and you went there with an empty suitcase, right? Like, you had your clothes in your backpack and then a big empty suitcase.
Like, I ended up only bringing one big suitcase because I took my army as a carry-on, rolling it, and I didn't want to be around like getting the airport with all my bags. And but I only packed, I was there 6 days. I only needed like 2 pairs of underwear and a shirt. I was good, so I had all that extra room. But it was full, dude. I was worried about going back. Like, my backpack, I had my backpack that was completely full, wouldn't even fit under the seat on the way back, but I made it. And then flying in so I had to first of all, flying from Frankfurt to Chicago, it really wasn't that bad. But the night before, like 12 hours before I was supposed to leave, my flight got canceled. So right off the bat, it's like, oh Jesus, here we go. So I had to get rerouted, and I ended up going into security, or going into U.S. Customs at JFK, which was an absolute nightmare. And then, of course, my bags gets, like, when you go through security games, you had to get my bags. I was my carry-on got searched with my models, so I had to try to explain to the people, like, no, these are just toys for adults, right? And then I had my magic cards with me, and they were like swiping them down, like opening up all the compartments and stuff. And
if you were telling them that toys for adults, I think they probably misunderstood.
They were looking at you with images. You come from Germany, and these are adult toys. I don't want to see the videos.
Coming direct from Hamburg. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a whole experience, man. It was a lot of fun. That's actually the first time I've ever been to Chicago too, so it's kind of funny. I flew from Frankfurt to go to Chicago, but it was nice. It was a nice area. The venue was really nice. It was a little toasty, because whenever you get that many nerds in one area, But also, I saw some of my people I've been following on YouTube for a long time. I mean, I was the same way when I met Kyle Chris. I was super awkward. I was like, "I've been watching you for forever, man." But he's an awesome dude. Like the whole Mantic crew was awesome. They got a really good group of people.
But Trent, was there anyone who was like that with you though? Like, wow, that's Trent from Countercharge. Plus,
I'm trying to. I guess I still had the mustache, so I got a few comments on that. But yeah,
beautiful.
It was a good time. Yeah, we're gonna have to show up at some point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
I went last year, and it sounds like this year was it was 1,000 more people than last year.
Yeah, it was really, really busy. Like we the ticket line, the line to get your badge on Wednesday night or whenever, like the first night that it opens is, it was like all the where the Space Marine statue is.
Mm-hmm.
Normally it was like down past that to the lobby on the first night, and then the next morning it was like it again. But we just got there like 5:30 in the morning and immediately got our badge. But it was insane. It really was. But it was good. Like I never felt it never was like, oh my God, it's too crowded. Like I don't want to be in here. It was just like a good hum, of people going around and stuff. It was a lot of fun.
Amazing. And obviously you had the doubles game against Mark.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I played. Funny enough, the first doubles game we played the Odd Man Out, the Ringer, which was my buddy from Colorado. Which we used to play every month when we were there, so it was kind of funny. I had a really great game there. And then second game I played Mark and Colin, which was really, really cool. It was a crazy game, man. Like we had so Colin was playing Undead 2, and he had a Legion of Zombies and a horde of Revenant Cavalry. The horde of Revenant Cavalry had the Brew of Strength, so we were pretty scared of that, right? I mean, I know they hit on 4s, but it's 32 attacks. So we finally, we're doing all getting ready to go, and we finally set up the charges where we're like, okay, we think we can take out the Legion, and then the horde of Revenant Cavalry, we'll be good. Snake Eyes to both of them, and they were right on Snake Eyes, right? It wasn't like, oh, we need to roll a 7, you roll Snake Eyes. Like, no, we Snake Eyes both of them. So we still managed to pull it off, but it was a really fun game. Yeah, Mark and Colin were a blast to play against.
Amazing. Oh, fantastic. Super. Anything else? Any other Adepticon questions?
What's the most expensive thing you bought?
I bought a brand new airbrush. I got an Iwata Eclipse. I know the guy was schmoozing me. I know that's what they're there for, but I actually got to use it. Like they had it set up, and I could try the one that I was looking at, or the next level up. And as soon as I felt the trigger on it, because I've been using a $40 Amazon airbrush for the last year. As soon as I sprayed the first little line, I'm like, yeah, okay, I need this. I need this in my life.
Sometimes it's nice to be schmoozed, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I was like, I know what you're doing, but keep doing it, please.
Keep doing it. Oh, yeah. I think you've got a few optional extras, right?
Yeah, I had to get the fancy mat, the quick disconnect adapter, and all the good stuff.
Of course you did.
Obviously, when you're airbrushing, you desperately need a quick release.
Dude,
you're a man about town,
And the worst part about it is I went there and I bought all this stuff, and then when I got home, I'm like, well, dude, I got a new airbrush, I got new paintbrushes. I need to step up my hobby set. So I completely replaced my paints, and I got the Army Painter air set, because that's every airbrush class that I took, they recommended that one. Because they're like, hey, it's the cheapest, and honestly, there's no difference in quality. So I'm like, okay, cool. That's a quick, easy sell. But I also got the Reaper starter set with the, they have the color triad system, and I think Reaper's is a pretty small company. I think they're based in Texas, but Rob's a huge fan of them. So I taken some fatherly advice there and got that. But I haven't used them yet. My hobby area is probably the cleanest it's been in 2 years. And I haven't, since I've gotten back from Adepticon, I haven't actually gone down there and done anything. But I have my boxes stacked up. I'm like, okay, this is what I need to build, and then go from there. So I'm getting there. What's
next? Is it Forces of Nature stuff
Yeah, I'm gonna do a small ambush army for it. I think I have enough. Well, actually, now that I think about it, it's kind of large. So I'm gonna have. This is all together, obviously not one list, but I have 4 regiments of Earth Elementals. I need to paint 3 regiments of Fire Elementals, 2 of the Scorch Wings, and then I have a ton of the AOS Sylvaneth like Dryad dudes. I know a lot of people use them for Hunters of the Wild. I think I have 3 boxes of those. I don't even remember when I got them. So I'm debating on whether I should paint those up or not because I like the idea of using Hunters of the Wild. But I'm honestly not sure if I'm going to do that or not.
The Hunters of the Wild were great against you, actually, weren't they, in Berlin?
Yeah, they're really good. I mean, the Scout being able to move at the double, Pathfinder, and Defense
hitting on
5.
threes.
Yeah, hitting up 15 attacks, hitting on 3s for the
Get a
regiment.
Bane
Not
chant
bad.
on them. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Super. Cool. Right. I think we can call that a topic of the month. Trent, anything else to add? If you want to, we can go back to the listener questions.
You should you put Adepticon on your bucket list because I don't do a good job of explaining it. It really is. I've been to like a few Kings of War tournaments and I've had a lot of fun there, but this is just a whole experience. It's like Disney World. It's like Disneyland Paris for adults who are into wargaming. It's an awesome time. It really is.
Adult toys.
Yeah, exactly.
We work in inches. Good. Super. Trent, are you going to join us for listener questions or have you got to drop off?
I'm going to have to drop off.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for having me. It's been a blast.
As always. Cool. Right, so, Steve, let's get on to your next preposterous question. Oh, right, why am I reading them? Have you got the notes up?
No, you should answer them. So that's why you're reading them.
Oh, okay. Let's stick with that. I like that, Clem. Let's keep the pressure up. Also,
So
which
I was
accent?
searching for Sportsman lists.
Which accent is sexier, French, German, or English? I'm going to say it depends.
So a French girl once told me she found English accents sexy, right? All English people find French accents sexy.
Yeah.
And no one finds German accents.
German accents?
That's
no, they can be attractive. It's just.
So, what nationality is your wife, Chris?
She's German. Yeah.
Oh. Okay, cool.
Yeah, there we go.
I think this will just say French. It's French, right?
Foreign is sexy, right? I think we can all 3 of us have foreign wives, right? So we can all agree foreign is sexy. That's it.
Is there any accent that isn't sexy? Birmingham isn't sexy. That's
not a sexy. Right? That's not a sexy accent. Yeah, that's true. That's fair to say.
To me, it kind of is. I'm sure if I heard it, I have no idea what it sounds like. I'm sure.
As a general rule, I think probably quite harsh accents are not very sexy. I think you want to soft.
What they're doing, Chris. If you're strapped down and they're about to apply the sandpaper, you might like it.
What?
Moving on.
I wasn't expecting you to say sandpaper. Now I'm very confused. Anyway, so I think we answered that question.
I'll send you the pictures, Chris. You'll figure it out.
Do you? I won't. Do you prefer resin, plastic?
Sorry, what?
Do we prefer resin, plastic, or metal models? Also, which paint brands do you like? Well, I must confess, hard plastics seem to be the easiest to work with. Resins can be really, really nice, but they can snap, and you also have to wash them, and I'm a very lazy man. Metal models, I'd probably put the bottom. Well, having said that, I did some metal Gates of Antares Boromites, and they were just fine because they were pretty chunky and easy to glue, not too heavy. But yeah, guys, have you got anything beyond that to add? I'd say hard plastics are the best for the company and probably for us. Tend to have more options and bits and stuff because it's cheap to do.
Yeah, I mean, and you can chop them a bit easier. They tend to be cheaper. Sometimes there are limitations on what you can sculpt in hard plastic compared to resin or metal models. I mean, there's also another category you didn't mention, which is 3D printed resin, right? Because they kind of behave differently. I don't know. I think I prefer plastic for sure. And metal models, the problem is I don't like the heavy part of it. That's not my thing.
Yeah.
Because if you look wrong at it, then they just break down. Like you have to pin them, which I never do, and then my model will explode when they just fall over, just to the side, and you can break off an arm or something. So that part is annoying. And I'm not too attached to super old models in a particular way. Like some people really love really old models. So it's like some of them are really nice. Like I love some styles of sculpts, but that's about it. Like I don't need to play with the toys that I used to have when I was 12. So yeah, paint brands, contrast paints all the way.
Chloe, did you ever play Confrontation? Talking about old metal models, people.
Yeah, I still have some of those. I played the skirmish version because I think there was a big army game as well at some point later. But I was already out of the hobby when that came out. But I do have some of the big wolves guys. It was an interesting. It wasn't super cheap from what I remember because I didn't buy many of them, and so we only played really small skirmishes. But yeah, it was nice.
Nice. And then, and the second part of that question was paint brands. Which paint brands do we like? If I'm given the option, honestly, I'll go for Vallejo because their stuff is fantastic. But to be honest, I mean, recently I'm finding even army painted paints do a job. And increasingly I'm using more kind of artist inks and artist paints and stuff like that. I started doing it just to see how it covered and everything with things like browns for just like doing my bases. And very quickly I went, oh, this is pretty good. Put a little drop of medium in with it, and it works just fine. And artist inks for washes and things work really nicely too. So I'm not particularly wedded to one. I've still got loads of GW paints because when I started playing GW games, I thought my models might explode if I use a different paint brand. But as I'm doing it, I'm more interested in what the color looks like and what the pigment's like rather than necessarily which particular brand.
Yeah, I mean, I'm lazy, so I don't like to mix colors because I think it's not easy enough to get consistent results. So especially when you paint an army, I don't want to have to mix colors because I'm not good enough to do that properly and really reach the same shade of purple again. And so I tend to buy, like the base purple and then a darker one and a lighter one. And so a range that already has this type of stuff really has an advantage for me. And then, as I said, like lately, any new project that I start, I tend to just use contrast paints. And it's kind of like, not because I think they're better, it's just that's the stuff that I got initially, and so works for me. And I just use up what I have. That's about it.
Yeah, nice.
My confession from asking this question is that I hate resin models, right? So I hate 3D printed resin. I have a 3D printer and I have printed whole armies, and I think that's fine because you know what you're getting, which is brittle, crappy models, right, with good detail. I think company-produced resin models are hideously expensive, over-detailed, and unnecessary. And I get they fill a gap because Mantic makes them, and it's it's a way for them to produce high-quality models without massive expense.
Yeah,
I
mean, when you say that unnecessary, what do you mean by that?
Unnecessarily detailed. So when you paint, the paint that you put on a model obscures detail, right? And the models, the resin models, particularly, I think large resin models are good. So if you have like what's the Abyssal Dwarf big like stumpy model? Hellfane. Like a Hellfane is a resin model, right? And that's large scale and it's good because it's worth it. Or like I've got a monolith or a Shobik, right?
So like a centerpiece model.
Yeah, they're big, they're detailed, and that's fine because you can paint them to the detail. But if you have small scale models, like let's say Reapers, or a model with a small face, if it's resin, your paint automatically, even the undercoat, obscures the level of detail that makes them unnecessarily. I I'm not a fan of it. I think they're way too expensive, and I think this comes back to there was a Kings of War Fanatics post about the price of some resin models from Mantic, which is like $42 or whatever it was for 6 or something, and we know that's because that's how much it costs to produce them in resin. And I would just it's either metal or plastic all the way for me, and I think I like the weight of metal in my hand. Like if you ever played against someone with Trident Realm, you pick up their gigas and you think, oh, that's an offensive weapon. That is. I feel the power of this model. It's so you could knock down a wall. It's like a Nokia from like 1993. It's that kind of weight of model in it. And actually, maybe it's because the only time I played Warhammer was in like 1983 when everything was metal. But it feels to me like a proper set of models. Whereas if I pick up my Ratkin, it feels like I've picked up, a piece of paper. It's nothing because it's all plastic. I don't know. I know where I'm going with this.
Working with the metal, because I find they're a pain in the bum to glue. As Clem said, like you should pin them, but inevitably we don't. They chip much easier, it seems, than you can gloss them and everything or whatever, but it seems like they chip easier. To me, the correct answer is just plastics, right? And we know Mantic are trying desperately to move away from the metals because people said they didn't like metals. Then they're into the really expensive resins. Now I think we're all understanding where Mantic possibly can take the upfront costs. They'll get stuff in plastics, in any model ranges where they know they're going to do volume, get them in plastics. Hopefully Mantic can be just printing money for 10 years with the nice sprues now with the, hard plastic ogres or whatever, but they need to guarantee that they're going to get the sales in to justify the tooling, right? There's the upfront cost. So, but yeah, I agree. I mean, it's, I think, Palace Ogres for the Basilians was always a really good example where they just, whether it was, I don't know, $50 or whatever for 3 models, then you work out how many of them you actually need for your 3 hordes, and it's just like.
Yeah, the other example for me is the Frostfang Cavalry, right? Like I have like a couple of them, I think, from the Kickstarter for Vanguard, and they're lovely models, but it's like, do I want to buy 6 of them? Because
and they're all
it's kind of monopose, It's like, on its own, it's an amazing model, but if you put 6 of them on a tray, it's like, what is this? And yet you still pay the kind of exclusive price for like a higher detail, higher working time to create, like manufacture the model. And so I think this doesn't really fly with making big armies.
Doesn't make sense from Mantic's perspective or from the players, right?
I think Mantic say they prefer to make hard plastic everything if they could, right? But it's tooling cost, like you said. It feels to me like resin is a poor stopgap. But I don't have a better solution. I just dislike it personally.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but in lots of ways, right? Mantic just seem to be doing brilliantly at the moment. They just, in all areas, they just seem to be getting much, much better, moving in a direction I think a lot of people wanted them to. I think this is one of them. We've got the new plastic Night Stalkers coming. I think it's all, as much as they can, I think they're doing a great job. But yeah.
Are we excited for STLs to come from Mantic?
Definitely.
I am.
Cool.
It's like, if I'm going to get crappy resin, I might as well print it myself.
Right.
Yeah, well, exactly.
No, sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, no, great question. Thanks very much, Steve, for sending the questions. Much appreciated. So, let's get our teeth into this one then. Danny Graves has asked us, hey, Danny, what units would you remove from the game? Oh, hang on a second. Am I jumping too far ahead? Sorry, I feel like I've missed a question. Yes. What are the top 5 armies that you would cut from 4th edition? Oof. I mean, I'm not so sure. So we've thought about this loads recently, right? And particularly with 4th edition, it'll be there at some point. I'm not so sure that we necessarily want to remove armies for the sake of it. I mean, if you looked at something like Ratkin slaves, you could say, well, if we got rid of them, almost no one would be upset about that. Like, who's actually going to genuinely miss them? I think someone said recently there are 2 Ratkin slave players in all of the US. But on the other hand, it's just the rules committee coming up with balance. I mean, sure, it means that they're dividing their time and that's a resource between lots of different armies. But like, for me, the more important thing for 4th edition is actually getting rid of allies and just, I think actually that is the more important step for making sure the game is balanced, rather than worrying about cutting. I mean, if it were me, I to be honest, I would probably want to cut it down to about 18 armies, which is actually nearly cutting it in half. I think that Matt Croger made a countercharge episode fairly recently on, and he was kind of just going through it himself, and I think he talked a lot of sense, and he was saying things like keep orcs but make them a function of Riftforge orcs. I can get on board with that. That kind of made sense to me. So yeah, the whole theme list thing, I think, just completely needs looking at and simplifying. I mean, just from a lore perspective, it doesn't make any sense to me that the Sylvankin can't ally with elves. I mean, that just seems mad. And it's it's done for a reason, but I just don't think the reason should exist for lots of reasons.
There was a thread about this, and Richard Miles came up with something that I think is genuinely brilliant. And I say that, but I know Richard pretty well. And he's like a little storm cloud in the world. He bless him. But by the way, in person, the loveliest man, just really, really nice. But online, rarely has anything positive to say about stuff. But yet he's come up with this brilliant plan, and I love him for it, which is, why not make theme lists where if you take a specific named hero, it unlocks the theme list. So if you have like Riftforge orcs and you want to take tradition, there is a specific hero you have to take that then allows you to have a different theme. So like a few different units in an army.
That's or maybe a formation.
It's like it's this hero's specific army you're taking.
That's cool.
Like the Ophidians, like right?
Like Ophidians. So maybe the Ophidian, like an Empire of Dust list, but you take a specific hero, it becomes Ophidians. Like that hero.
Jarvis. Yeah.
Jarvis, right? Turns the undead good. That kind of a principle. I love that idea because it actually brings storytelling back into the game.
I know what Clem doesn't like about this. It's like Clem likes to take his stuff. He doesn't like so much name characters. But yeah, no, I
sometimes I'm a bit particular about my things. Yes, I've been known to. Yeah, no, something like that. I mean, let's say, for example, let's take elves as an example. Okay, Twilight Kin, not. So let's say elves and Sylvankin. I'd rather they made it all one list again, but then there might be you might get bonuses, like almost like a formation or something. You get bonuses for taking a particular kind of Sylvankin list. Like if you've got a kind of a narrative list, you get some kind of advantage for doing that. But I mean, there's also, you kind of want to cut some builds, right? I'm not sure you can take a Wildfather with normal elves, but you can't also take dragons with Sylvankins. So, so you can have some more typing. So, I mean, I think I agree. Like having a hero or a formation that kind of unlocks a variant of a list sounds like a good idea, but you also want to avoid like nasty combinations.
Yeah,
and I think what makes every army like a specific type of specific thing to play is not all armies can do everything, right? And so I guess you have to be a bit careful that you can't end up with elves doing anything you like depending on which unit you pick where. And arguably, I think Sylvankin and like normal elves, they can do different things, and it's not necessarily a bad thing in itself.
Yeah. But I think you're right. If you were to put them together now, they would be. You could do nasty things with those two lists together. But yeah. I mean, what do you guys think? I mean, it does seem absurd that there's nearly 30 armies in the game.
Ultimately, I think my issue is not with how many there are, but how many have a strong Mantic IP and a really interesting Mantic range of miniatures. So in a way, I don't really want to see new lists added. I mean, why not? Could be interesting. Could have done without the halflings, for example. It's like, okay, I mean, some people love them, so it's great.
A lot of people love. It seems like they've been by far the most popular.
Popular lists.
No, but
yeah.
My point is, I'd rather have, maybe less armies, but that are better covered by actually Mantic models or like well supported like this. I don't really feel a need
it's more
to
about.
remove...
Sorry,
No,
Karen.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
For me, this is about balancing, right? So the rules committee do have a hard enough job as it is, and we've seen with the Scorchwing example how hard it is to balance the game as it is, because there's they pick one unit that's kind of interesting, and actually you spam it 8 times and it's a nightmare. So the more lists you add, the more difficult it is for them to seem like they have variety, rather than just this is the same as Abyssal, this is the same
and
as
that's
whatever.
the criticism you hear from the outside, that the lists seem similar, rightly or
because
wrongly.
we have a single rule set, right? We have every list is a variation on the single rule set. This is not like AOS or 40k. We have a tome of rules per army where everyone has crushing strength, and it's the same crushing strength in every army. So trying to make more and more armies seem and play different is increasingly hard the more lists you get. Also, balancing against each other is increasingly hard the more lists you get. And I think they've done an absolutely spectacular job so far of making lists that feel and play differently. Like if I play elves as opposed to Green Lady or, I don't know, Abyssals, they feel and play differently, right? And you can say, oh, I'm a good player with elves, but I absolutely suck with undead, or whatever it is, right? And retaining that difference is very, very important. So, what's the right number of armies? I mean, I would like to see less armies. However, I wouldn't. The problem is people really invest in the IP and the very ethos of an army. Take John Guns as an example we were talking about earlier. He's really bought into the Green Lady. He's got the army of the Dark Green Lady. He's got a whole mythos about it. He's written a thing that goes with it. He's fully into it.
And he's using his plague models as his water elementals.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So, I think Brother Mark is one that hasn't really, to forgive the pun, hit the mark. There haven't been many people who come up with a real... I've rarely seen I haven't seen many Brother Mark lists. Rack and Slaves, I've seen quite a few. We've got quite a few players in the UK who love Rack and Slaves, and there's actually an army that is pretty good. The little pop fact is they wanted to kill Rakin altogether. Rakin were going to be off the table, and Rakin Slaves was going to be the only army you could have. But then I think the rules committee member, I think it was Matt, who was chair of the rules committee, said, well, why don't you make the Veerman models, like the tunnel runners, part of the army? And they sold out of tunnel runners within a month. And so they kept them as Ratkin.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So, the problem is people have really invested in the army's IP that are Mantic, and extracting that's going to be difficult. I think we probably see a shake-up of things like Kingdoms of Men and Rordia. I've not seen many Rordia lists recently. So you could probably lose Kingdoms of Men or Rordia or Brother Mark or some of the human lists, so a bit of consolidation. You could consolidate some of the elf lists. But from there, I mean, Orcs and Riftforged Orcs, I think Orcs were supposed to die, but I think there's some pretty strong pure Orc players that run whole tournaments based on it, and I think they wanted to wait for that to kind of die down a bit and people to realise the potentially Riftforged Orcs before that dies down. But I think there is some consolidation to do, but not too much, right?
I mean, it's
the variety.
Yeah, we do. I mean, I think we touched on a lot of the points there. I think one of the tricky things is that you're not taking... Mantic didn't start with their Mantic IPs and build outwards, right? They didn't start small and build out. They kind of started as let's be honest, our models are cheaper than GW's, buy our elves, buy our undead or whatever to play Games Workshop. Yeah, okay, Mantic had some rules, but I think that was clearly what their customer base was. That's what they were trying to do. So I think it's very hard from that point, when you are a bit of a Mega Bloks versus Lego kind of a situation, that only really now are they trying to get their Mantic IPs and really clearly define what that actually is. In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Also not too much in a hurry to see a 4th edition. I think, Ronnie, you said we have at least a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, right? So I think it's good. We don't need to change too often. I think updates like we've had with FAQs and Clash of Kings every year are good. And I don't need a massive amount of changes, I think.
No, but we will need Steve on our army review when it happens, on our book review. Big red book.
Yeah.
Soul
like
flares
that.
are unchanged.
Yeah, I mean,
Players.
yeah, absolutely. No
Hashtag.
change. From my perspective, no change. And the second part of the question, Chris, did you mention it already, or?
No, I didn't. So it's the converse. So, sorry, I know it isn't the converse. So, which units? Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. Which new lists would you like to see added, if any? Well, my idea for sort of good abyssals is a thing. Well, it's not a thing actually, but it's an idea. Which is, Steve, so if you can imagine that the rift closed, because the goodies won a battle or whatever, the rift closed, but there were demons who were left just wandering in Pannithor for a really long time. And I could just imagine them sort of making their way in the world, and having to, trade or, just fit into society rather than just destroy everything the whole time. I think that would, because there's lots of factions in games where there are corrupted good guys, and there's a lot of that going on in Pannithor. But I thought the idea of actually kind of corrupted bad guys might be quite cool. I mean, and one thing I would say actually is, even with the good neutral evil thing, well, okay, good fighting evil is very simple, but like most of the factions in the good bucket aren't really good. They're kind of like the dwarves and Basileans are doing incredibly shifty things, and we're supposed to believe they're not really good. So anyway, I don't know why I'm going on about this. What are there any other armies you guys would like to see added to the game?
I mean, you can. It depends how far Mantic want to go in defining their own IP, because you can make up IP all day. You can have an army of insectoids. You could have a machine army. Let's say the dwarves have been crafting something and suddenly they gain sentience. You could have a fully elemental army, an army of the elementals replacing one of them. You can come up with stuff all day, but at the end of the day, you can't overburden it, can you? Really, you need to be balanced in what you're providing. And people, one of the big attractions of Kings of War is that all these old Warhammer players have got armies lying around, and then there's stuff they can apply their armies to.
Yeah, but I'm increasingly seeing that as a negative thing. These guys that may or may not buy a book and have no intention of buying a Mantic army, do we? It's
so
like
that's not
Kings of War's been going 10 years. Do we still want these guys?
We don't. Well, like, fuck them. So, in my opinion, and in your lists, is whichever my nephews would like, and I'm not in their brain. I don't know what a 15-year-old likes these days, and whichever my wife would like, right? Those are the audiences I want to see come into the game. And I'm not them, so I'm not too sure. But what I really hope for is that Mantic keeps on building Pannithor and also the Warpath universe, but try to include or see which other audiences they want to talk to and try to build stuff for those audiences.
I think Clem's made a really good point there, is that maybe we want to attract some people that aren't middle-aged white dudes like us. Yeah. Yep. Why not?
Well, good luck with that.
Steve, anything to add?
Nope.
Oh, good. Oh, this is I don't think we're going to do this one justice, or I'm certainly not. So Danny has also asked, bless him, also, what units would you remove from the game? Which ones just don't fit? And that's not an excuse for another Kingdoms of Men meltdown. Thanks, Danny. In terms of units that don't fit, I mean, he's implying, I think he's probably hinting at something there.
I think we just suck too much at the game to really have this level of expertise of this unit doesn't work or that unit should be removed. In general, I think I like when not all armies can do everything. And so I don't necessarily need to have all options for all armies. I don't want to just block one army into one typical build, and it's the only thing that works. But sometimes having too many options doesn't add to the game. It kind of removes from it.
And it makes everything feel basically the same. I completely agree with you, Clem, actually. And I think actually part of the game is, that's part of the reason I don't like allies, is part of the game, and I'm not very good at the game, but still, part of the game is, covering for the deficiencies of your army, right?
Yeah, and then, I mean, what units I would remove, in general, I'm not a fan of too much shooting or too much flying, because they're pretty good in terms of the game, and so it's kind of tempting to put them in your list, right, if you know they're good. But they get very overwhelming for less experienced players, or even I'm not a new player, but I have a pretty hard time playing against a strong gun line, and I think it makes for a boring game a little bit. At least that's not what I want to play. So I like when I see more hordes on the table. I like the mass battle aspects of Kings of War, and so. Yeah, somehow finding a way to make like the standard hordes or standard regiments more interesting, I think would be cool. But how to do this and keep the game balanced and interesting to play, I have no idea. That's why I'm not in the rule committee, because I'm not good enough to really understand this type of things. But yeah.
What do you think, Steve?
I think there was an argument that was made about units that break the rules of the game, and it was made specifically. What's the halfling unit? The aeronauts. And it was against the all aeronaut army.
Always hitting on fours. Yeah, that was at Clash of Kings in Cardiff, wasn't it? When we were there. Yeah, Clem played against it. And
the argument was that there's nothing you can do about that. It's and that's not fun. But I was thinking about this some more. And things like throwing mastiffs also break the rules of the game, so they always hit on fours. And so does the hammer of measured force. So actually, it's not breaking. It is a rule of the game. I don't think there's any specific unit I'd like to remove from the game, apart from ones that I hate because they always beat me. And that's not because I think they're a bad unit. It's because I'm not a good player and they irritate me intensely. So all defense 6. So why are we being so balanced and trying to be fair about this? All defense 6 units should be removed from the game. All dwarven players should not be able to play. What else do I hate? Anything that flies.
Remove elves.
Oh, I play elves. Shh.
Remove them.
No. Shh.
Sorry, Clem doesn't want to remove elves. He just wants to remove the elf players.
Absolutely.
Julius from Basileia, he can go. He can go and suck a log. As far as I'm concerned,
ice elementals.
Is sucking a log? Is that an expression people say?
I was going to say something more filthy, but we're not. We're not safe for work.
Let's make it an expression. That's great.
Yep. Yeah, So Julius can go and do one. Who's that defense 6 dwarf character that shoots? I hate him. Whatever his name is, I hate him. He can get stuffed. Anything played by Danny Graves can get knotted. What else? Anything Chris Lynch plays, get stuffed. And Ector. He should be removed from the game because
I love
garbage.
Ector. How often do you see him played, though? He doesn't have any unit strength.
In absolutely every Trident Realm list. There isn't anyone that doesn't take Ector, because why would you not? He's insane. Yeah, he's got phalanx. Why has he got phalanx? It's mental.
You have to point him in the right direction. But, he's about 160 points, so he costs as much as a unit strength regiment,
He's defense 6, and he's got a wind blast that damages, and he does 1 billion damage. He's crush 1 billion. He's mighty. He's stupid. I hate Ector. God,
I love Ector. Yeah.
Knuckers, they should get one. Why are they stealthy? They're like 10-foot monsters.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair to say. Yeah.
Anyway,
I think
sorry, not as if Trident Realm to win in any tournaments anywhere.
No, it's not a fair point.
You can tell that I play Simon Cooper, who plays Trident Realms all the time, and he takes Krakens, Knuckers, and Ector, and always wins. Anyway.
Well, I often take those things and rarely win, so Cool. As long as Showbic stays untouched, I'll be all right for the GT. Yeah. Actually, I won't be. I'll if I can get 2 wins, I'll be happy. Cool. Is there anything? I mean, Aeronauts might be an example. Is there anything kind of, if we step away from talking about the rules, is there anything that thematically we don't think makes sense in the game?
I mean, it's a fantasy game, isn't it? And you can make anything make sense, really. You've got giant steel behemoths that move with magic. Something doesn't make sense. You just go, it's magic.
It's magic. Yeah, exactly.
That's magic, isn't it?
Wizard did it.
Got rifles. Magic.
Yeah. How do we feel about the fact there's gunpowder weapons in the game? Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Cool.
I mean, it's shooting, so I don't like it, but apart from that.
But
I actually like the idea that in a fantasy world where magic exists, despite the fact they found gunpowder, it hasn't taken over the battlefield because you can just conjure fireballs from the air. So why on earth would you invest into a powder you have to mine when you can just read a book and shoot lightning bolts at my face? So it does make a little bit of sense in terms of that.
Yeah, and to be fair, for a really long time, it was all well and good they had, gunpowder weapons. But, I wouldn't fancy their chances very much against the English longbows, for example, So, you can just have really, really strong old-fashioned technology as well, Cool. I feel like, I feel like we've let Danny down with not answering these questions in a more entertaining way. But, we're doing our best, Danny.
We're just bad at the game, that's all.
Bad at the game, bad at podcasts. Cool. I'm pretty sure that was our last question.
I think we're through it. Yep. That's where you take us out.
Super. Anything else to touch on before we go, guys?
I don't think so. Was there not another? I'm sure there was another question. Didn't
there was one from Peter but I answered it earlier in the pod regarding my home scratch built terrain.
Right.
I have to say, wouldn't be a podcast about a question from Peter?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, good old Peter. Yeah, Pod All Star. And I just want to say to our 20% of listeners who actually listen this far, God bless you. You're the real fans of the pod. These people that just want to listen for 2 hours. They don't mean a thing to us. Right, Clem?
To be fair, as someone, I drive a lot in my job, and podcast, literally the Adepticon coverage from Campsite is all that's kept me going, frankly. And it is literally the same. They talk about the same thing again and again for an hour and a half over like 6 different episodes, but it's kept me going on all the driving I've done. So, don't disparage long podcasts. They are doing a function. Trust
Steve,
me. This is the best one, of course.
You were the man that was telling. I'm not sure about that. You were the man that was telling us they were too long. So we've just now you're making long range sales calls.
Amongst anything else, consistency is not one of my benefits. And you shouldn't disparage the podcast. I've had a number of my friends have told me about how much they're enjoying this specific podcast as the everyman's podcast because it's just normal talking about games to play. So there's been some very positive reviews.
Oh, it's lovely to hear, Steve. Lovely to hear. Yeah, I think this may very well be our year anniversary pod. Not sure, but roughly. Fantastic.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah, we're having a really good time. It was always designed to be an excuse to talk to Clem about models on a monthly basis, and all stuff Mantic, and it's amazing. We've made great friends on the way, and all the rest of it. Super. And Steve, thank you so much for joining us and for contributing so much. And it feels like whenever we've got rules questions or we actually have to know something about something, you always step in and say interesting things. So many thanks for your contribution as always.
Anything a bit more than superficial, you're the man.
Exactly.
Like we can bullshit our way out of some things, but not all things. And then we have you to, do the actual work and bring in actual contributions. So it's nice.
I'd like to point out I don't actually know anything. I just talk confidently about as if I know something, and then sometimes it's true, which is that's a skill.
So works on me. Unchanged. Moving on.
Works on me.
You're welcome.
Cheers, guys.